Chapter 37-38. Suddenly, a ray of green light flashed past her eyes. A sturdy shield appeared in front of her. Following that, the stench also dissipated. It was the green dragon. The green dragon coiled its body and blocked in front of her, blocking the beast's turbid air. It enveloped her completely under its protective shield. Roar. The beast roared ferociously as the powerful aura exploded from its body and gradually rose. Rumble. The surrounding buildings also collapsed under the roars of the wild beasts. Roar, roar, roar. The beast seemed to be afraid of the green dragon. After it realized that it was unable to attack Yiqing Luo, it turned around and waved its claw towards the other side of the battlefield. A nearly 3 meters tall gigantic beast could cause the earth to quake and mountains to shake with just one claw. The ground cracked and collapsed. The violent force was like a tornado, sweeping up the crushed stones and soil on the ground, scattering in all directions. That overbearing power. It wiped out a group of cultivators in a matter of minutes. The crushed stones that splashed out entered the cultivators' bodies and took away their lives directly. Its power was so strong that it made one fearful. For a moment, the auction was filled with wails. When the cultivators from various powerhouses saw this beast, they thought of that white dragon monster which had been slashed. Apparently, this beast in front of them was much more powerful than that white dragon monster. They didn't even have a chance to retaliate. Were they really going to? Doomed today. Everyone's mood instantly fell to the bottom of the valley. The atmosphere of despair filled the air. Roar. The beast was very satisfied with everyone's fear towards it. Accompanied by Yuji's cold laughter, the beast suddenly leaped up and flew into the sky. That huge body was extremely agile. With this leap he jumped several zhang high into the air. The hurricane that was stirred up by his body carried the momentum of a tempestuous wave, and it forced the surrounding profound practitioners to fly backwards. Screams came from everyone's mouths. After the beast leaped up, it quickly rushed down in their direction. Heavens! Is this beast trying to crush us to death? Quick! Spread out! Help, help! The crowd watched as the beast's huge body fell like a huge meteorite. A majestic and thick dark force followed. The entire sky was filled with violent profound energy. Like a tide, it was unstoppable. A single monster was enough to annihilate all the elites from the major forces. What kind of terrifying organization was this? Those profound practitioners who were sent flying didn't even have the chance to dodge. They could only look on helplessly as the huge beast charged towards them. Boom! Ka-ka! Ka-cha! The huge explosion was deafening. A berserk power swept out. Even in the air, there seemed to be cracks appearing. The space trembled, and a surging wave of energy slammed into everything in the surroundings. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Fear and despair before death took over his entire heart. However, under this earth-shattering explosion of power, none of them felt their lives slipping away. The feeling of surviving made everyone feel both shocked and joyful. They widened their eyes and looked at the sky full of dark rays in confusion. Not far from them, the enormous monster smashed into the group of black-robed men. The ground caved in as a result of the monster's attack. A huge pit was created. Many black-robed men were smashed into pieces. What was going on? Wasn't that monster smashing them? Chapter 37-39. The next moment, the doubts in everyone's hearts were answered. In the deep pit where the monster had collapsed, a red figure suddenly appeared. The red-robed young lady had a devastatingly beautiful face, a pair of long and narrow eyes, as though the stars were ravaging. She was obviously dainty like a flower, but her cold and murderous aura made one's heart tremble, like a beautiful death god who had walked out from hell, like a poppy which made one suffocate, yet not daring to touch it. In that huge deep pit, the young lady's figure was extremely petite. When she leapt into the sky, a green light flashed and the green dragon spiraled, protecting the young lady in it. The green dragon scales glowed brilliantly, giving off an extremely cold and chilling aura. Yuji, you only have this bit of ability? The girl's clear and cold voice carried an oppressive aura, mixed with a trace of obvious ridicule. When the crowd heard this, their hearts were in their throats. Did this lady know what she was saying? That monster was summoned by the people from the Palace of Darkness. She provoked the other party. If she angered that monster, what if it swallowed her in one mouthful? At this moment, in everyone's hearts, they had subconsciously placed their hopes on this young lady. They had totally forgotten. Not long ago, they were still suspecting her in every way. Perhaps it was because right now, everyone's hearts were already filled with despair. Only Yiqing Luo, this young lady, a newborn calf who wasn't afraid of the tiger, dared to hoot at the Palace of Darkness, and had such a noble war pet. So they tried to find hope in the midst of despair. They subconsciously felt that, if they wanted to leave the auction alive, they could only rely on this young lady called Yiqing Luo. And because of that, hearing Yiqing Luo's provocation, everyone was so nervous that they were suffocating. As expected, Yuji was provoked. His face was pale, one hand was still pressed on his chest, tightly holding onto his flesh, allowing the blood to flow on his palm. He smiled sinisterly at Yiqing Luo, laughing coldly. Yiqing Luo, your luck will not last forever. So what if you have the green dragon? You will absolutely not be able to defeat my blood fang. Using my flesh and blood to construct the blood fang. Following Yuji's passionate low roar, the huge beast buried in the deep pit suddenly gave a loud roar. Immediately after, the ground began to shake violently. Beast slapped the ground hard. Its huge body instantly leaped out of the deep pit. A stream of black yin-chi instantly wrapped around the wild beast. Yuji raised his head and stared at the wild beast. His hand, which was in his chest, went deeper into his chest. His face contorted in pain. However, the corner of his mouth was still hanging in a twisted arc. Blood fang, suck my heart's flesh and become stronger. Fresh blood stained Yuji's arm. Then little by little, it dissipated on his skin. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that the energy of the monster wrapped in yin-chi had grown stronger. Damn it. A monster created from flesh and blood. As long as it continued to suck its master's blood, it would be able to recover and level up? You guessed correctly. Old Man Sung explained, this kind of forbidden technique is extremely cruel. If there's even the slightest bit of carelessness, the person who digs out the blood from their own heart will die from excessive blood loss or from the wrong position. Once the master dies, the monster will also disappear. Yiqing Luo looked at Yuji. Then I'll just attack Yuji? Chapter 3740. Damn it. Did it need to be so difficult? Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as her lips pursed tightly. No matter what, killing this wild beast called Blood Fang was obviously an unrealistic thing. She could only think of a way to deal with Yuji. She gripped her glower flame fan tightly as her figure moved, nearing Yuji's direction. Yuji only sneered when he saw that. His gaze turned cold. Blood Fang, which was surrounded by black chi, turned into a bolt of lightning as it charged towards Yiqing Luo. That speed was even faster than Yiqing Luo, by several times. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she quickened her footwork. The glower flame fan in her hand swiftly swept away the wind blades as it pressed towards Yuji. Azure Dragon twisted Blood Fang. Blood Fang was still able to find a gap to use his own body to block Yiqing Luo's attack. Following that, he turned around and pounced towards Azure Dragon. This kind of dark attributed wild beast will automatically block fatal attacks for the host. Old Man Sung continued, so I said right from the start that it's very difficult to get past the dark attributed wild beast and kill the host. Is there no other way? Yiqing Luo asked. Old Man Sung replied, no. Yiqing Luo frowned as she didn't ask any more questions, but focused on finding a chance to attack Yuji. Yiqing Luo's side was already in a battle. On the other side, the various powerhouses clenched their teeth as they started to join the battle between the black-robed men. At this moment, they could only choose to unite as one and fight with their backs against the wall. The terror of the opponent was something they had seen very clearly. If they didn't take advantage of the situation where Yiqing Luo was suppressing that monster to finish off these small fries, when Yiqing Luo couldn't hold on any longer, they would be in danger. Everyone started to fight, which made the executive elders heave a sigh of relief. Everyone started to join in the battle. Guiwu, Zoemo and Mao Mao joined in. The battle was much easier than before. Numerous attacks and dazzling profound energy filled the sky. The surging majestic energy was like surging waves as it surged continuously. Battle intent and killing intent intertwined in the air. But on the chaotic battlefield, there were two extremely abrupt presences. One red and one purple. Two men with outstanding temperament, as though they were aloof from the world, stood in the middle of the battlefield without any intention to make a move. Unfortunately, the two men's temperament was so powerful that it suppressed everyone from the secluded palace. It didn't matter if it was the people from the major forces or the Palace of Darkness. They would consciously avoid the two of them, not daring to get close to them. The biggest similarity between the two of them was, from the beginning until the end, his gaze had never left the young girl who was fighting Yuji and Shueya. It was as if in his eyes, even in the entire world, there was only this girl. The dark light that filled the sky was sharp and murderous. The young girl moved quickly among the wild beasts. Her coordination with the Azure Dragon was reflected in the eyes of the two men. At this moment, suddenly the beast roared. From his wide-open mouth he spat out another ball of sticky stuff. When the sticky giant thing landed on the ground, it was covered in blood. It also let out a roar similar to Bloodfang's. This sudden change made Yiqing Luo stunned. The stench in the air was getting stronger and stronger. The stench was like the stench of a corpse that had been rotting for many years. And it also carried a thick stench of blood. Apart from the size of the beasts, they were almost identical in appearance. Yiqing Luo was cursing in her heart. How could he give birth from his mouth? And it gave birth so quickly. Opening his mouth and spitting out, he gave birth to a monster that looked exactly the same. One wild beast was already hard to deal with. And now there was a second one. Illusory wild beasts were willful, right? Chapter 3741. Oh my god, that monster. That monster actually gave birth to a new monster? What's going on? Is that an illusion? Are we really going to die here? Everyone opened their eyes wide in disbelief after seeing Beast's godly performance. The confidence and fighting spirit that they had worked so hard to nurture. All of them were badly hurt. One monster was enough to wipe them out. Not to mention the addition of another one. This was not giving them a chance to live. Cough cough. The Palace of Darkness said that as long as you join us, you can leave this place alive. While everyone was panicking, a voice panting heavily sounded, enunciating every word. Xiao Yilu walked out from the corner. She was still holding onto the wall, her face pale. Her white dress was stained red with blood. Her body was still trembling slightly. Obviously, her injuries were not light. She could walk out now. She had already used up all of her strength. Xiao Yilu gritted her teeth and endured the pain. She stared at the people on the battlefield with her dark eyes and spoke again. Join the Palace of Darkness. You have also seen the strength of the Dark Nether Palace. Their strength will let us see real hope. After she said this, she coughed hard. Mouthfuls of blood gushed out. Without embroiling city's fairy? Princess Yilu. Everyone was attracted by Xiao Yilu's voice and looked at her. After hearing Xiao Yilu's words, their expressions were no longer as resistant as before. Instead, they loosened up. After seeing the power of the Palace of Darkness, those who wanted to live would naturally no longer resist. Looking at the huge beast, the ground full of blood and corpses, everyone's heart started to waver. With Xiao Yilu's help, Yuji seized the chance and said, "That's right. As long as you join the Palace of Darkness and become its disciples, I will guarantee your safety." I will join. Me too. Is what you're saying true? As long as we join, we can leave the auction? Then I will join too. More and more profound practitioners, driven by fear, chose to join the Palace of Darkness. There were also some who wanted to make a decision after leaving the auction. But such little cleverness. How could the gloomy palace, which had always played dirty, not be on guard? As the profound practitioners who joined the Nether Palace walked towards the black-robed man, according to Yuji's request, a ray of black light scattered across the sky like a fairy scattering flowers. Strings of black light flowed into the bodies of the various profound practitioners. The expressions of all the profound practitioners changed greatly, and they immediately covered their chests as they questioned in panic. Yuji's face was pale. Because one of his hands was still stuck in his chest, he looked extremely sinister and terrifying. He coldly swept his gaze across the panicking profound practitioners in front of him and sneered. This is the mark of Dark Ghost Palace. After becoming a disciple of Dark Ghost Palace, you can only be loyal to Dark Ghost Palace. If you do anything that goes against Dark Ghost Palace's mark will devour your flesh and soul. What kind of **T mark is that? Aren't you making things difficult for me? I don't want this kind of mark. Quickly expel it from my body. Chapter 3742. Someone shouted. Don't try to scare me. I don't believe in this. Using such a method to force me. I don't want to do it anymore. The man cursed as he turned around and walked towards the direction of the major forces. However, before he took a few steps, suddenly, that person stopped. Then he let out an extremely tragic cry. That person turned into a mist of blood in front of everyone's eyes. The most shocking thing was, within the blood mist, there was a ball of black flowing light. The flowing light flickered. The blood mist gathered towards the flowing light. Then, it returned to Yuji's hand. This scene stunned those profounders who were clamoring. They pressed their chests. Their faces were filled with fear and unease. The thing that entered their bodies was like a timed attack device. It was very likely that they would all be devoured in the next instant. How would they dare to act rashly? Is there anyone else who wants to leave? Yuji sneered when he saw that he had successfully intimidated everyone with this move of killing the chicken to warn the monkeys. All the profound practitioners' faces were pale and filled with fear. No one dared to clamor anymore. However, this caused those profound practitioners who were planning to join the Nether Palace to start hesitating again. What are you hesitating for? There's nothing to hesitate about. Xiaoyulu tried to persuade them again. However, after saying this, she seemed to have lost all her strength. Her body went limp and she sat on the ground against the wall. Her blood stained the ground. She held on and continued. As long as you don't have any thoughts of betraying the Palace of Darkness, so what if this imprint is in your bodies? I feel that this will not affect you. Everyone turned to look at Xiaoyulu at the same time. They seemed to be struggling with Xiaoyulu's words. Yuji threw a look at Farohi. Farohi's eyes flashed slightly, but he did not say anything and flew towards Xiaoyulu. Pharaoh Crane landed behind Xiaoyulu, and with an indifferent expression, he took out a medicine bottle that was suffused with black gas from his spatial pocket. He poured out a medicinal pill and threw it at Xiaoyulu's feet. His voice was cold and aloof. This is a medicinal pill given to you by the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. After consuming it, your injuries will be healed. His arrogant attitude made Xiaoyulu frown. However, her fatigue and injuries had worsened, and she no longer had the strength to argue with the Pharaoh Crane. As a matter of fact, he threw the pill to her. In her heart, she did not want to eat it. However, when he thought of what had happened to the people from the Palace of Darkness, he felt that it was a pity. She still took a deep breath, raised her hand forcefully, and groped for the pills by her feet. His fingertips clenched the pill that was covered in blood and dust. She closed her eyes and swallowed the pill. He glanced coldly at Xiaoyulu before looking at the profound practitioners from the various forces. As long as you join the Palace of Tenebrous Shadow and remain loyal to it, you will definitely be rewarded handsomely. What the Dark Nether Palace doesn't lack are all kinds of secret skills and precious elixirs. As he spoke, Xiaoyulu, who had been on the verge of death, quickly stood up after swallowing a medicinal pill. She looked at her own body in surprise. His face was no longer pale from his severe injuries. His eyes were filled with vigor. Thank you, Palace of Gloomy Darkness. I swear to follow the Palace of Darkness to my death. Xiaoyulu was wild with joy as she said to Farohi. Farohi snorted coldly, then leaped and returned to the group of black-robed men. The speed of Xiaoyulu's recovery left all the profound practitioners speechless. They heard Farohi's words again. Chapter 3743. Those cultivators who stood at a high position wanted to raise their profound grade the most, to become even stronger. Profound grade, ability, was the only standard to determine their position. The strong were respected. Only by becoming stronger would they be able to stand firm and live for a longer period of time. The conditions proposed by the Palace of Gloomy Darkness were indeed tempting to everyone. Everyone had witnessed Palace of Darkness' ability with their own eyes, and there was no way to deny Palace of Darkness's power and various shocking secret arts. What they could learn. For example, to summon the white dragon monster earlier? For example, to be like these black-robed men, to be able to use it to become immortal, invulnerable and impervious to fire and water. For example, to learn the secret art of creating wild beasts with flesh and blood. For example, to obtain the medicinal pills which Qiao Yulu had swallowed earlier. Consuming one pill, even if one was on the verge of death, he would be rejuvenated. For example, wait a minute, there were many other benefits. In comparison, joining Palace of Darkness didn't seem to be a loss at all. Birds chose a good tree to nest in. People walked towards higher ground. This had nothing to do with betraying the original family or the original powerhouse. At this moment, there were even more cultivators who abandoned their own powerhouses and joined Palace of Darkness. When Qiao Yulu saw this scene, a sinister smile appeared in her eyes. Yu Ji sneered as his lips twitched, as he looked at Yi Qing Luo complacently. See, this is the human heart. This bunch of trash's ability originally can't be compared to my dead corpse army. Now you don't have the advantage in terms of numbers. He staggered backwards a few steps. Blood flowed down his arm, and speedily dissipated in the direction of those two enormous monsters. His malevolent expression was as he laughed coldly. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. Yi Qing Luo could understand each cultivator's choice. She couldn't say that they were wrong, but she couldn't agree with their actions. Once one was branded with the word traitor to a person's life, this was a term which could never be washed away. No matter which powerhouse it was. Betraying the first time, they would definitely betray the second time. This kind of people were not trustworthy and not worth to be friends with. Yi Qing Luo was very clear on the reason why Qiao Yulu supported her dispirited body to persuade everyone. Qiao Yulu was the first person to join Palace of Darkness. If she didn't persuade more people to join, her reputation would be completely ruined. Now he had persuaded so many profound practitioners from the various major powers to join him. If he said it out loud, it was just for the sake of survival and to become stronger. To put it bluntly, she was just finding a few scapegoats to protect her good reputation. Those cultivators who joined the Nether Palace. Yi Qing Luo didn't want to waste her breath to feed them any chicken soup. In any case, they would eventually regret their choice today. Yi Qing Luo's attention was focused on the two gigantic wild beasts in front of her. From time to time, he would attack and harass the Azure Dragon. Facing two different-sized wild beasts with similar strength, Yi Qing Luo was getting more and more strenuous. She just couldn't show it. If her aura was slightly weaker, the morale of their side would weaken as a result. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness would have a chance. The two sides were still fighting. The executive elders were still shouting loudly to boost morale, but it still couldn't stop them. More and more profound practitioners surged towards the Palace of Darkness. Yi Qing Luo's side gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. The morale of the struggling crowd plummeted, and they no longer had any desire to fight. The reason why he insisted on standing here. Chapter 37:44. The sky was dyed red by the dark clouds that were shrouded in blood. More and more profound practitioners fell to the ground. Just a moment ago, they were comrades. The next moment, he became an enemy, and he even died at the hands of the other party. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly when she saw this. If he didn't do something to boost the morale of the soldiers, then he would definitely die. This group of profounders were simply waiting for death. She glanced at the two blood fangs that surrounded her, and her eyes flickered slightly. Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon let out a low roar. Immediately after, Yi Qing Luo's 5 fingers moved, and the glower flame fan suddenly surged, drawing out a strong airflow, chopping down towards the two blood fangs. Meanwhile, Yi Qing Luo leapt up and flipped onto the green dragon's back. The Azure Dragon's huge tail suddenly flipped. Heavy waves of qi crisscrossed the sky. A berserk power that seemed capable of destroying heaven and earth slammed against the ground like raging waves. The entire battlefield was covered in rubble. In this chaos, Yiqing Luo called out to Shiju, who was battling with Li Mao and the others, in her heart. Her body suddenly fell down. Shiju's massive body caught her firmly. Then, it quickly flew towards where Pharaoh Crane and Xiao Yulu were standing. Yuji, who was protected by two bloodfangs, couldn't move. But Pharaoh Crane and Xiao Yulu, these two scum. It shouldn't be a problem to solve it. Yiqing Luo expressed that she, a person who had not even reached the standard to ascend to the Earth Realm, in order to motivate a group of Earth Realm cultivators, she was willing to give it her all. If this group of profound practitioners were still so weak, could she choose to become evil and kill them with her own hands? Yiqing Luo's actions were extremely swift, and in a blink of an eye, she had already dashed in front of Xiao Yulu. Perhaps Xiao Yulu thought that those two wild beasts were enough to trap Yiqing Luo. He didn't even have time to react. Immediately after, a red figure flashed past. Her neck was lifted by a slender and fair hand. Xiao Yulu's eyes narrowed. She had just escaped from death. He hadn't even had the chance to enjoy the feeling of being alive again. Death had found her here. Xiao Yulu's face contorted in pain. But she could not struggle, because the moment Yiqing Luo locked her neck tightly, he commanded Shiju to soar into the sky. Xiao Yulu was grabbed by the neck by Yiqing Luo, hanging in midair for a parade. Yiqing Luo! Pharaoh Crane exclaimed in disbelief as he looked at Xiao Yulu, who was suspended in the sky. He cried out in alarm. This caused the profounders of the various powers to look over. Wasn't she killed by those two monsters? How? This girl is too strong. She actually broke through the defense of those two monsters. Look. The Empyrean ferry of Without Embroiling City is suspended in midair. The people of the major forces were all shocked and flabbergasted. That gigantic beast could wipe them out with just one. When Yiqing Luo was facing the two gigantic wild beasts, not only was she able to handle it with ease, she was even able to break through their defenses and attack Xiao Yulu when she was unprepared. Everyone looked at the gigantic black panther galloping in the sky, as well as the red-clothed girl on its back. His eyes lit up. Then what shocked everyone the most was that the girl on the black panther did not stop because of this. Her eyes were deep and serene. Her slender fingers gripped the glower flame fan tightly as she flipped it. The surging bright red glow turned into densely packed light rays as it was released. That light rays made one's eyes feel a faint piercing pain. Pharaoh Crane frowned as an ominous premonition arose in his heart. He stared at that light for a moment and swiftly retreated to the side. Chapter 37:45. The next moment, under the densely packed red rays of light, Chen Xiaoyan's eyes widened. No one had noticed that under the bright red light, there was a hint of silver lining. By the time Pharaoh he sensed the chill, it was already too late. The hidden silver threads under the glower flame fan had already wrapped around Pharaoh he. Following that, Yiqing Luo hooked her finger. The glower flame fan closed. Numerous silver threads lifted Pharaoh he's body up. His body was tied up, hanging horizontally in midair. Ah! Pharaoh he cried out miserably. His forelimbs kept struggling in midair. The icy cold silver threads were like sharp blades, sticking close to his skin, his flesh. Faintly there was a piercing pain. He could even feel a thick liquid spilling out from his body. Those silver threads were not ordinary silver threads. When Pharaoh Crane realized this, his entire body froze. Palace of Darkness, you're just a rat hiding in the dark. How dare you speak such bullshit in front of all the famous sects? The young lady's cold laughter echoed throughout the entire auction. Her tone was filled with ridicule. Since the two of you beautified Palace of Darkness so well, then, do you think that before you die, you'll be able to see the people from Palace of Darkness? Save you? Pharaoh he and Xiao Yulu's eyes widened in terror, but they had no strength to move. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as her gaze looked downwards, at those cultivators who had lost all their battle intent. Do you really understand what is a strong cultivator? A real strong cultivator, will they escape from danger? A real strong cultivator, will they seek for shortcuts, to improve themselves? A real strong cultivator, in front of the battlefield, Will they doubt their own ability to wear down their battle intent? After a few rounds of questioning, Yiqing Luo's voice became sharper. Following that, she gave a cold laugh, revealing some traces of ridicule. The strong cultivator that I think is born from adversity and tempering through battles. Facing an opponent who is stronger than you, even more powerful, shouldn't be fear. But your battle intent is ignited to improve yourself to the extent where you are able to battle with the opponent. After Yiqing Luo finished her sentence, she threw Xiao Yulu, who was in her hands, fiercely towards a direction. If you keep using the mentality of a weakling to face everything, you will be like these trash, waiting to be trampled upon. Ah! The feeling of weightlessness caused Xiao Yulu to scream. The fear of falling from such a great height eroded her heart. This fall did not have the assistance of any profound qi. She would definitely be smashed into minced meat. Oh! Pharaoh Crane let out a painful groan. The silver threads wrapped around him, causing his body to spin like a spiral. Just a moment ago, the two people from Gloom Palace were still stirring up the people's hearts. In the next instant, he was in such a sorry state. Coupled with Yiqing Luo's words, everyone felt ashamed and embarrassed. He had lived for more than half of his life, but he was still not as clear as a girl. Everyone was still a little afraid. However, his confidence was greatly boosted. Ah! Xiao Yulu's ear-piercing scream pierced through the sky. Those screams made one's head hurt. Her body was caught firmly by someone. She was nestled in that person's arms, screaming to vent the fear and pain in her heart. The person who was hugging her frowned tightly, as his expression was impatient. When he opened his mouth, his voice was chilly. Scream again and I'll throw you out. Xiao Yulu was so frightened that she was shivering. Hearing that voice, her tightly shut eyes immediately opened, as her eyes stared intently at the person who was hugging her. When she saw that person's face clearly. Chapter 3746. The person who caught Xiao Yulu was none other than Xiao Yinyan. The direction in which Yiqing Luo threw the man was in the direction of Xiao Yinyan. After all, Xiao Yulu was Xiao Yinyan's younger sister. She was the biological daughter of Patriarch Xiao. Yiqing Luo naturally couldn't really take action to claim Xiao Yulu's life. Of course, this was under the premise that her life was not in danger. When she had first arrived in the Earth domain, Xiao Yinyan had always been the one helping her. He had never asked her for anything in return. If she really killed Xiao Yulu, it would be a miracle. How could she face Xiao Yinyan in the future? Even if Xiao Yinyan didn't care about his younger sister. However, kinship and blood ties still existed. This was an indelible fact. How was Xiao Yulu's solution? Xiao Yinyan would be the only one to make the decision. Yiqing Luo withdrew her vision and didn't pay any more attention to Xiao Yinyan and Xiao Yulu's situation. Instead, he moved his fingers and tightened the silver thread in his hand. Then he swept up the Pharaoh Crane and threw him in the direction of the two enormous beasts. Yiqing Luo, Azure Dragon, and Shiju worked together to grab hold of the opportunity to reverse the current situation, which seemed to have taken a very long time. In reality, it was less than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. The Azure Dragon, who was facing two gigantic beasts, was slowly falling into a disadvantageous position. Not to mention the Green Dragon's power, because of the contract with Yiqing Luo, or because the Earth realm would be suppressed by the realm's balance. For example, this land was also a restriction for Azure Dragon. The auction venue was extremely vast, but there was a large group of profounders and a large group of black-robed people. Most importantly, these two Bloodfang monsters were too huge. The size of the Azure Dragon and the size of the two Bloodfangs. The space for battle was not too big. Moreover, Azure Dragon was different from Bloodfang. The Azure Dragon had to take into consideration that the cultivators of the major forces would not be harmed. As for Bloodfang, he didn't care. He didn't differentiate between friend and foe. As long as he could attack, he would attack without hesitation. The more apprehensions there were, naturally, their combat power would be affected. After Yiqing Luo had roused the hearts of the people, he immediately used Pharaoh He to force Bloodfang's entanglement on the Azure Dragon. Ah! Pharaoh He's terrified scream pierced through the horizon. His body, was directly thrown into the overbearing profound energy, which was like a sharp blade's force. Even more miserable screams rang out. Just as Pharaoh Crane was thrown over, Bloodfang opened his mouth and bit him. He didn't even chew it before swallowing it into his stomach. He took advantage of Shuya's momentary distraction. Yiqing Luo and Azure Dragon's vision met. His fingers gripping the glowing flame fan tightened. She displayed her footwork and violent dark force surged out. She was as fast as lightning. Under the cover of the green dragon, she flew towards Yuji. Profound energy encircled his fingertips. Vast and majestic profound energy surged and roared as it attacked secluded silence. Even the air began to explode with a tremor. The airwaves rippled out like ripples. Just as Yiqing Luo's attack was about to claim Yuji's life. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo felt a chill down her spine as an indescribable sense of fear assaulted her body and mind. Her heart trembled. The momentum of the attack quickly slowed down. Immediately after, his body instinctively made a dodging movement. Her reaction speed was fast, very fast. But she could still feel a sharp and majestic energy, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws towards her. Just sensing this energy, Yiqing Luo felt as though her skin was being sliced open by something, and it was extremely painful. What kind of powerful energy was this? Chapter 3747. Yiqing Luo didn't know how to describe this feeling. She didn't see anyone. Just a slight sense, which made her hair stand up as she was extremely vigilant. She was very alert and her reaction was extremely fast. But she was still one step too slow. At the instance when she retreated, the palm wind which brushed past her seemed as though it was going to tear her apart. The surging profound energy instantly swallowed her. The chi wave surged as though it was a huge wave. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale instantly. Her heart sunk fiercely. The aura of death was spreading around her. Her profound energy exploded as she increased her speed in an attempt to avoid that attack. Even if she couldn't avoid it, she absolutely couldn't die so easily. Just as Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth, about to bear the heart-wrenching pain from that energy, suddenly, she felt a tight grip on her waist. His body was pushed back by a strong and powerful arm, and he fell into a wide embrace. A man's elegant sandalwood scent entered her nostrils. It instantly dispersed the young lady's blood stench. Yiqing Luo was still in a daze as she fell into the man's embrace, and when her forehead knocked against the man's chest, she finally reacted from the pain. Xian. Yiqing Luo called out the man's name. The man hugged her with one hand as he raised the other. The wide purple sleeves, under the strong qi, were like purple clouds rolling and floating. A gust of thick black qi which could be seen with the naked eye swept up the raging wind as it contended against Dmo Xian's raised sleeves. Yiqing Luo raised her head as she looked at Dmo Xian worriedly. Xian, your body. No problem. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped as his eyes were filled with tenderness as he smiled and shook his head. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. Where did this sudden and powerful strength come from? Was it another strong helper from the secluded palace? She pursed her lips even tighter. Just as she was about to ask Dmo Xian to be careful, an icy cold voice suddenly rang. Yiqing Luo, the person who saved you is not only him, there's me too. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she immediately looked towards the direction of the voice. She then saw a tall figure in that thick black qi, faintly discernible. One could faintly see that blazing red robe sweeping past. As he spoke, the clouds of black qi gradually dispersed in all directions. The man's cold and handsome face was revealed, causing one's heart to palpitate. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. Chu-chu Xian. Dmo Xian and Zhu Wu Xian, one in front and one behind, blocked that thick black qi. The majestic and powerful profound energy, and the air ripples that spread out in the air. They were all blocked by these two people. The dense black gas slowly dissipated and vanished into nothingness. Unexpectedly, Zhu Wuxin had also helped her. A low pressure floated down from the top of his head. Yiqing Luo immediately retracted her vision from Zhu Wu Xian as she coughed lightly. Zhu Wu Xian. Thank you. I don't need young Master Zhu's help and Luo doesn't need to thank you. Dmo Xian's voice interrupted Yi Qingluo. He intentionally made a declaration as he hugged Yi Qingluo's petite body tightly. Chu Wu Xian was expressionless. I did it for Yi Qingluo. She has her own self. There's no need for you to worry. Dmo Xian replied coldly. Zhu Wu Xian continued to be expressionless. Yi Qingluo is my future wife, of course I will worry. Dmo Xian's face turned black. If it wasn't for the fact that the occasion wasn't right. Chapter 37:48. To say that his little Luo, or was his future wife in front of him. Haha. She could feel the fluctuating emotions of the man. Yi Qingluo immediately placed her little hand on Dmo Xian's chest, as she comforted him. Ah Xian, it's a fact that he extended his hand to save me, so naturally I should thank him. Otherwise, wouldn't others think that I, Yi Qingluo, am an ungrateful person? She deliberately emphasized the word others. Dmo Xian naturally understood Yi Qingluo's hint. His brows rose as his peach blossom eyes squinted, hugging Yi Qingluo's petite body tightly as he looked at Zhu Wu Xian complacently. What Lil Luo, said is right. After all, he's an outsider. An outsider helped you, so it's only right for you to thank him. He was thankful because the other party was an outsider. Those who truly treated him as their family would not care about anything, whether it was a favor or not. Yi Qingluo's words pleased Dmo Xian. His anger from Zhu Wuxin's words also calmed down. Zhu Wuxin's face was expressionless. No one could tell what he was thinking. But Yi Qingluo could sense that Zhu Wu Xian's surrounding icy cold aura had increased by several notches. She knew that her words might hurt Zhu Wuxin. However, she still had to clearly put some distance between the two of them. She smiled at Zhu Wuxin. Thank you, Zhu Wuxin. Zhu Wuxin did not speak, nor did he respond. He only used that pair of calm and indifferent eyes to stare straight at her. There was not the slightest change of emotion in his eyes. This gaze made Yi Qingluo's hair stand on end. Just at this moment, Yu Ji's angry voice broke the silence. Castle Master of Death God Castle, you. What do you mean by this? Unknowingly, Yu Ji was sitting on Bloodfang's head. In front of the huge beast, he was like an ant. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to find where he was. Since we have decided not to cooperate with the Palace of Darkness, then, I hope that the Castle Lord of Death God Castle will not interfere with all the plans of the Palace of Darkness. Yu Ji gritted his teeth as he spoke. Clearly he had long held a grudge against Zhu Wuxin. Zhu Wu Xian glanced at Yu Ji indifferently and ignored him. However, from the corner of his eyes, he caught a glimpse of the two people hugging each other. A dim light flashed in the depths of Zhu Wuxin's eyes. He opened his mouth and his voice was as cold as ice. The reason why we don't cooperate with the Palace of Seclusion is because your plan is to hurt Yi Qingluo. The reason I interfered was because you guys touched her. His words were so straightforward and direct. It was like a passionate confession, expressing his feelings. He had to admit it. This kind of words could really move a girl's heart. However, other than looking like a cute girl in front of Dmo Xian, Yi Qingluo didn't have the so-called maiden's heart. This was the second time Yi Qingluo had heard of Zhu Wu Xian giving up on the collaboration with the Palace of Seclusion. It was just that this time, it came from Zhu Wuxin's own mouth. She didn't have that kind of feeling between a man and a woman. However, he was truly grateful. For her, he gave up his goal. This made Yi Qingluo grateful and touched, but also a little awkward. She did not think that there was a relationship between her and Zhu Wuxin. She could make Zhu Wuxin sacrifice for her. That was the goal he had worked so hard for. For a moment, she did not know how she should face Zhu Wuxin. Suddenly Yu Ji laughed crazily. Chapter 37:49. Shut up. Zhu Wu Xian's expression suddenly turned cold. His chilly eyes were filled with a piece of solemnity. Yu Ji laughed loudly. Why? Afraid that I will expose you in front of Yi Qingluo and spoil your image in her heart? You're looking for death. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes were filled with murderous intent as his tyrannical profound energy was like a wave crashing towards Yu Ji. Bloodfang leapt up and raised his claws to block Zhu Wu Xian's attack. Bam! Bloodfang's huge body flew out heavily as it crashed onto the ground. A wave of earth quaked and mountains swayed. Zhu Wu Xian flew up as his red robe flashed past, leaving behind an afterimage as he stepped on Bloodfang's body and flew towards Yu Ji. Just as Zhu Wu Xian was about to move, a chilly voice rang. Wait. The young lady's voice successfully made Zhu Wu Xian, who was in midair, stop his actions. He floated in midair as he turned his head sideways to look at the young lady. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she raised her eyes and met Zhu Wu Xian's eyes. Following that, she opened her mouth to ask, "What did Yu Ji mean by that?" "Nothing much." Zhu Wu Xian replied indifferently. Even though they were separated by a distance, Yiqing Luo could still feel that after she asked this question, the chill on Zhu Wu Xian's body became even more intense. Yu Ji, who was hiding on the other Bloodfang's back, was filled with cold sweat after he escaped death. He clutched at his chest and panted heavily, but he couldn't stop laughing. Of course he doesn't want to tell you. Ha! Not so long ago, the high and mighty young Master Chu would actually do something for a woman. And a woman who's already someone else's wife. Ha ha ha, what a joke, what a joke. Yu Ji. Zhu Wu Xian's icy cold voice stopped Yu Ji as his chilly eyes stared deadly at Yu Ji. Yiqing Luo frowned as her little hand patted Dmo Xian's hand, which was placed on her waist. After Dmo Xian let go of her, she leapt up and faced Zhu Wu Xian. What he said is related to me, so I have the right to know what happened. The two of them stood face to face. The icy cold flame encircled the two of them. The raging hurricane was also surging around the two of them, but it didn't come near them. Zhu Wuxin did not speak. There seemed to be a storm gathering on his expressionless face. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and shifted her gaze towards Yu Ji. What did you say earlier? Say it again. Perhaps he wanted to sow discord between her and Zhu Wuxin. Perhaps he was already dissatisfied with Zhu Wuxin's coldness and wanted to make Zhu Wuxin suffer. When Yiqing Luo asked secluded silence, Yu Ji answered without hesitation. You didn't hear wrongly. The moment you arrived in the Earth realm, you were separated from Dizun and the others. It wasn't an accident, nor was it because of the turbulence in the passageway leading to the upper realm. It was all planned by young Master Zhu. After Yu Ji said this, he immediately looked at Zhu Wuxin, afraid that Zhu Wuxin would be angered by this. However, he saw Zhu Wuxin standing there silently. Wisps of black hair covered half of Zhu Wuxin's face. His emotions were also concealed within. When Yu Ji saw that Zhu Wuxin didn't have any reaction, he didn't even try to defend himself. Instantly, as though he had caught hold of Zhu Wuxin's weakness, he sneered as he continued. In order to get you, he resorted to unscrupulous means. Yiqing Luo, do you feel that the image of him in your heart has been destroyed? That man totally isn't like what he showed. Yu Ji slandered Zhu Wuxin without any limits. Chapter 3750. It was probably because Zhu Wu Xian was worried about Yiqing Luo and didn't dare to make a move. Yu Ji vented out all the unhappiness towards Zhu Wu Xian, which he had suppressed in his heart. He laughed loudly as he stared at Yiqing Luo's face without blinking, attempting to see the embarrassment and anger on Yiqing Luo's face. He wanted to see Yiqing Luo making a move on Zhu Wu Xian in a rage. The best was for both of them to suffer. Then he would be able to reap the benefits from the third party. But Yu Ji stared at Yiqing Luo for quite some time. The most nasty slanderous words were said. Yiqing Luo's gorgeous face didn't have any change in expression from the start to the end. Calm, exactly the same as Zhu Wu Xian's expressionless face. Yu Ji's heart shuddered as his throat tightened, unable to spit out a single word. After he stopped talking, Yiqing Luo, who had not moved for a long time, slowly raised her slender brows. You keep saying that it's all Zhu Wu Xian's plan, then please answer a question of mine. Yu Ji's pupils contracted as he stared intently at her. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she spoke word by word. If I didn't remember wrongly, that strong suction force in the passageway space was filled with sinister murderous intent. I don't believe that Zhu Wu Xian would have that kind of murderous intent towards me. Yu Ji's expression congealed. Yiqing Luo noticed the change in his emotions as she laughed. Before you fabricate a lie, make a draft first so that it's full of loopholes and no one will believe it. What I said is all true. After you reached the Earth realm, you were brought to Without Embroiling City by him. Yuji saw that Yiqing Luo didn't believe him and instantly panicked. After you came to Without Embroiling City, in order to let you stay by his side, you were unconscious for half a month, don't you know? Yiqing Luo's pupils had some changes. Previously she found out from Dmo Xian that her memories when she reached the Earth realm were indeed very messy. Before she regained consciousness from her memories, she had no memory of the past half a month. Even old man Sung's memory was blank. This was because of Zhuwu Xian. Yuji saw that Yiqing Luo wasn't speaking for a long time, and he took a look at Zhuwu Xian, who was still silent with his head lowered as his heart was suddenly lifted up. He gripped Blood Fong's thick hair tightly to ease the fear in his heart. He gritted his teeth and said, I admit it. When you were in the tunnel, the suction force you felt was indeed the work of the Palace of Darkness. However, after that, it was Zhu Wuxin who snatched you from the hands of the Venerable One and betrayed his cooperation with the Venerable One. His gaze shot towards Dmo Xian, who was not too far away, and immediately returned back to Yiqing Luo. For his own selfish desires, he separated you from the Overlord and made you unconscious for an entire half a month, and even intentionally erased your memories. It's obvious that he's harboring evil intentions. In that half a month, even if he did anything to you, I'm afraid you wouldn't know. He deliberately used an extremely ambiguous tone and gaze to mock her. These words caused Zhuwu Xian, who had been silent the entire time, to suddenly raise his head. His cold gaze locked onto Yuji. Yuji was so scared that he almost fell off Bloodtooth's head. But Zhuwu Xian's gaze quickly returned back to Yiqing Luo. His cold face creased into a bundle. His slightly chilly eyes stared at Yiqing Luo, wanting to say something several times. But when the words were at the tip of his tongue, he swallowed them back. Chapter 3751. Why aren't you panicking? Why don't you blame Zhu Wuxin? During that half a month, he made you betray Venerable Sovereign. How can you still be so calm? Yuji didn't understand why Yiqing Luo was still putting on a calm and indifferent look. Wouldn't ordinary women fly into a rage out of humiliation when they hear such words that tarnish their reputations? Moreover, even a passerby like him knew how jealous Dizun was. Why didn't Venerable Sovereign start a war with Zhu Wuxin out of anger? All of this was completely different from what he had planned. Hearing the urgency in Yuji's tone, Yiqing Luo merely smiled calmly. I don't understand Zhuwu Xian, but the only thing I can confirm is Zhuwu Xian isn't that kind of person. She looked at Zhu Wuxin. He also caught the flash of panic in Zhu Wuxin's eyes. She curled her lips and smiled. I am indeed very angry that you trapped me for half a month and erased my memory. But as for the other things, I believe you won't do them. If I really did it, what would you do? Zhu Wuxin countered with a question, his eyes full of seriousness. Yiqing Luo smiled as she shook her head. You won't. Zhu Wuxin was not someone who would take advantage of others when they were down. If Zhu Wuxin was really that kind of person, he had many opportunities to forcefully take her away and engage in a torturous drama. However, Zhu Wuxin had never done so. He is only paranoid that she is his person. Other than stubbornly wanting to abide by the agreement from many years ago, he would never purposely cause her any trouble. Details tell a person's heart. Even if he did not understand Zhu Wuxin's character, Yiqing Luo was certain that Zhuwu Xian absolutely would not do anything to her. As for the disillusionment you mentioned before, I can only tell you that it doesn't exist. Yiqing Luo looked at Yuji smilingly as her eyes were filled with ridicule. As for him using unscrupulous means for me, this can only mean that my charm is very big. Yuji trembled as he pointed at Yiqing Luo, his face filled with disbelief. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Who would have thought that he would shout at the top of his voice and slander Zhu Wuxin? But it was totally unable to incite disharmony between Yiqing Luo and Zhuwu Xian's relationship. Instead, he had completely offended Zhu Wuxin. No, it was not just Zhuwu Xian. And he had also offended that venerable sovereign with a sea of jealousy. If Dizun and Zhu Wuxin made a move, he had no way out. Trash. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind Yuji. When Yuji heard this voice, his entire body stiffened and he straightened his body. This voice made Yiqing Luo and the others' expressions congealed as their bodies tensed up. His body had instinctively entered a defensive state. It was that feeling again. It was a feeling of fear that made one's heart tremble. It was the powerful force that had almost taken her life. Yiqing Luo's breathing instantly congealed as her body seemed to have a heavy pressure pressing down on her. At this moment, she felt a broad embrace behind her. The moment the pressure hit him, the elegant sandalwood fragrance had already dispelled all the negative effects. She arched herself into Dmo Xian's arms and her little hand clutched his robes as she lowered her voice. "Ah Xian, it's that energy earlier." Dmo Xian's expression was also grave as he raised his eyes to look at Yuji's direction. Behind Yuji, a black figure flew over like a ghost. Chapter 3752. What made Yiqing Luo most astonished was that man looked extremely young. At most, he looked around 24 or 25 years old. Just 24 or 25 years old. And his ability was already so powerful. That man. Who on earth was he? Young lord. When Yuji saw that man, he started to tremble uncontrollably. He didn't even bother about the hand which was inserted into his chest as he knelt down on the ground and kowtowed with all his might. When his hand stretched out from the hole in his chest, immediately large amounts of blood started to gush out. The blood was like a blood fountain as it seeped out countless amounts of blood. Yuji could feel the blood flowing out from his body rapidly. The feeling of losing too much blood made him dizzy. But he didn't dare to move. Totally didn't dare to move. He could only allow the blood to flow out from his body, allowing the two blood fangs to suck the blood that seeped out from his body. Trash. That man stepped on the air like that, strolling leisurely as though he was in his own backyard. He stepped on the air as he walked step by step to Yuji's side. From the side, his cold and treacherous gaze was like a poisonous snake, coiling around Yuji. Yuji's body trembled even more as he stammered. Young lord, I am only. It's just a small task and it forced you to use secluded palaces' forbidden art. If you're not trash, then what are you? The man laughed coldly as he interrupted Yuji's explanation. His smile was sinister. Yes, I am trash. Yuji didn't even dare to resist as his forehead heavily smashed onto the ground. Since you're trash, then you shouldn't stay in this world. The man's icy cold voice had no trace of emotions. Just as his words landed, Yuji gave a miserable ah as his body suddenly floated into the air. Immediately after, under everyone's gaze, his body exploded and turned into a blood mist as it floated in the air. The death of the host. The two enormous wild beasts also dissipated along with the wind. The entire auction finally became much more spacious. The disappearance of the monsters made the various powerhouses' cultivators whose hearts were hanging in suspense finally relaxed. All of them heaved a long sigh of relief. But everyone relaxed. Yiqing Luo only felt fear surging up her heart. To tell the truth, if it was her, she would never be like this man and kill Yuji so cleanly. After all, the purpose of secluded silence's existence was merely to provide blood for those two dark-type wild beasts. The two beasts were there. It was beneficial to the Dark Nether Palace. But the man didn't. The man didn't hesitate at all and killed Yuji so easily. This action could only mean two things. Firstly, the man only cared about acting cool and didn't think too much about it. Secondly, the reason for that was because the man's strength gave him absolute confidence that he would be able to destroy the auction without any external help. Yiqing Luo was more inclined towards the second option. That man had absolute strength and absolute confidence. The existence of Yuji and Shueya didn't matter. Just now when the man made his move, she didn't even see the man's movements. This was enough to show the difference in strength between her and the man. Perhaps he felt the uneasiness in Yiqing Luo's heart. The arm around her waist tightened a little. She looked up and met the man's concerned gaze. He said nothing, but his eyes were full of concern for her. Yiqing Luo calmed herself down as she shook her head at him. Dmo Xian's fingers circled around her waist as he pacified her emotions. Their gazes met. Chapter 37:53. Every step the man took. His surrounding energy made Yiqing Luo feel terror and danger. The man who was hugging her waist also increased the strength in his hands. Both arms brought her petite body into his chest, blocking the man's threatening force. Just as that man was about to get close, a remnant shadow flashed past. Zhu Wu Xian stood in front of Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. His tall and slender body blocked the man's footsteps. Young Patriarch Chu. The man smiled, his gaze was indifferent and his tone was so light that it made one's hair stand on end. Zhu Wu Xian's gaze met his. Young Patriarch Yuzun. The man who was addressed as Yuzun's eyes were cold. Why, after not cooperating with Nether Palace, you intend to become enemies with Nether Palace? Zhu Wu Xian was expressionless. Dragon's reverse scale. Those who touch it shall be killed. Reverse scale? Yuzun's brows rose as his gaze went past Zhu Wu Xian and landed on Yiqing Luo. Just a casual glance, as though he had seen some ant dregs. He then shifted his gaze away and sneered. Her? Zhu Wu Xian didn't reply, only frowning his cold brows as his icy cold eyes faintly shone with a sinister chill. Ha! Ha ha! Yuzun laughed out loudly as the gaze he gave Zhu Wu Xian was filled with ridicule. Not long ago, the high and mighty young patriarch Chu actually fell in love with a lady. He laughed. On that handsome face, that pair of sinister and treacherous eyes was suffused with a hair-raising cold glint. He was laughing. Zhu Wu Xian was still expressionless. Yuzun was laughing and laughing when he suddenly stopped. He raised his hand and placed it on Zhu Wu Xian's shoulder. Young Patriarch Chu, previously we got along rather well. I don't want to fight with you. Zhu Wu Xian glanced at the hand on his shoulder. His slightly creased brows were tainted with a sliver of disgust. He turned his head slightly, and a burst of profound energy pushed the hand on his shoulder down. His body was still standing on the original spot. Yuzun's expression gradually turned cold. Looks like you've made up your mind to become enemies with Nether Palace. Zhu Wu Xian still didn't say a word. He only slowly took a step back as his arm slowly raised up. An electric current coursed through his palm. Then a silver spear appeared in his hand. The entire body of the silver spear was emitting a silver light, and there was also lightning lingering around it. The totem on the silver spear was extremely complicated, and it was mixed with a strange aura. A powerful air current started to wreak havoc as Zhu Wu Xian's weapon appeared. All right. Good. Very good. Yuzun's eyes darkened, and the treachery in his eyes deepened. If not for foster father's obstruction, I would have long wanted to fight with you. This opportunity is great. He leapt up and his profound energy soared to the sky like a hot knife through butter, exploding with a loud bang. The sound shook the surroundings, causing the earth and mountains to shake and sway endlessly. Two figures quickly intertwined with each other. The surrounding people were all forced to take a few steps back by these two powerful forces. Wait! Suddenly, just as the two forces were about to collide, a light and indifferent voice broke the current atmosphere. The two of them looked in the direction of the voice. Amidst the surging energy, a purple figure slowly walked over. Along with that person walking over, the surging profound energy in the surroundings was like a mouse seeing a cat, and it actually obediently calmed down. The man looked like he was strolling in his own garden. Dizun. Chapter 37:54. Dmo Xian slowly walked to Zhu Wu Xian's side. He raised his hand. Like drifting clouds, his sleeves fluttered. The aura between the Dark Lord and Zhu Wuxin vanished in an instant. Dmo Xian shot a glance at Zhu Wu Xian as he waved his hand. Make way. Zhu Wu Xian didn't move as his cold face and eyes turned icy cold. Lil Luo. Is this Lord's future wife, so there's no need to trouble young Master Zhu to protect Lil Luo. Dmo Xian spoke calmly, but his tone was filled with pressing pressure. Zhu Wu Xian's body sunk slightly, as though his back was crushed by something invisible. But he still didn't move his feet. Only facing Dmo Xian's gaze, he said word by word. I want to protect her, It has nothing to do with anyone else. This lord's wife doesn't need an outsider to protect her. Dmo Xian's eyes sunk when he heard that. His sleeves moved and an invisible force swept Zhu Wu Xian's body up, throwing him directly into the black-robed man's battlefield. Just as he was about to smash into the black-robed man, Zhu Wu Xian's body jolted as he shook off the profound energy which entangled him. Following that, he slammed his palm on the ground as he bounced up. He quickly stabilized his figure as he looked at Dmo Xian with an icy cold expression. Since you want to help Lil Luo or so much then, help her protect these people whom she wants to protect. Dmo Xian's lips curled into an evil smile as his tone was light, as though he was ridiculing Zhu Wu Xian. The Nether Prime, who had been silently watching the two of them interact, slowly spat out a word. He looked at Dmo Xian in puzzlement and looked at Zhu Wu Xian. Immediately following that, his lips curled into a deep evil smile. This makes me curious, what kind of woman is she, to actually make Dmo and young patriarch Chu so infatuated with her? Yuzun laughed evilly. That pair of treacherous cold eyes went past Dmo Xian and looked at that petite figure behind him. The current Yi Qingluo was standing in the safe zone as she looked at the situation on their side without blinking. Dmo Xian had conjured an enchantment around her, helping her to block that powerful and mysterious man called Yuzun's aura. Noticing Yuzun's gaze, Yi Qingluo's brows creased. A chill of fear rose in his heart for no reason. She pressed on her heart and suppressed the uneasiness in her heart. Her mind was filled with the words that Dmo Xian had whispered into her ear when he was setting up the barrier earlier. He is an old friend of mine. An old friend? What kind of old friend was it? Yi Qingluo didn't delve deeper into it and didn't question further. To be called an old friend by Dmo Xian. Yi Qingluo had only met Baisu. Yuzun was the second. Apparently, Baisu was an old acquaintance of his and had a good relationship with him. But the Dark Lord was different. From his reaction and gaze when he saw Dmo Xian, Yi Qingluo could conclude that the relationship between these two was not harmonious. It could even be described as tense. Take your eyes back. Dmo Xian's body moved slightly and blocked Yu Prime's vision. This sovereign is very easily jealous, so. This sovereign's woman, you'd better not look too much. Ha. Ha 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 ha. Yuzun was tickled by Dmo Xian's words as a horrifying laughter burst out from his throat. Chapter 3755. Dmo Xian's eyes turned colder by the minute. Yuzun's laughter stopped as he shook his head. All right, I won't say any more. His words had just ended when he suddenly pointed at Dmo Xian. The smile on his face was instantly replaced by a sinister chill. He pointed at Dmo Xian as he spoke sternly. The current you. I really look down on you. Following his words, the sky full of profound energy interweaved as terrifying profound rays were released from his entire body. The huge force was like a raging gale. Numerous cultivators had their hearts crushed under this force as they vomited blood and died. Especially those cultivators who joined the secluded palace. Those who were closest to them were almost annihilated. Under this force, Dmo Xian's robe was fluttering in the wind, but he still didn't move an inch, as though a towering mountain was standing there. Yi Qingluo's heart was tightly gripped as though it was about to jump out from her throat. Help! More and more painful cries rang beside her ears. Another large batch of cultivators from various powerhouses fell. Even Zhou Mo, Mao Mao and the others were affected. She pursed her lips as her brows creased tightly. This couldn't go on. If all the people here died in the auction, they would all die. No matter what the reason was for Yuzun's appearance. Anyway, Secluded Palace's motive had been achieved. Various powerhouses' elites had suffered heavy losses. If Secluded Palace took the opportunity to attack the Earth domain, Secluded Palace's power would expand accordingly. But this kind of anxiety, Yi Qingluo could not reveal it. Although Yi Qingluo wasn't able to sense the confrontation between Dmo Xian and Yuzun, but she knew how dangerous it was. Especially now Dmo Xian's body was injured in the spirit-devouring array. If Dmo Xian cared about other people's lives, this would only distract Dmo Xian. and he wouldn't be able to go all out. She didn't want to see Dmo Xian getting injured again. Perhaps the young lady's inner struggle and worry was transmitted to Dmo Xian. Or perhaps he had seen through Yuzun's motive. Just as both parties' forces collided, Dmo Xian's sleeve suddenly moved. A shapeless air wave enveloped the entire auction. If you want to fight, this lord will accompany you. Dmo Xian's lips rose. Then let's fight. The figures of him and Yuzun disappeared in the air wave. Even the air waves that lingered around the auction completely disappeared. Xian. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as her heart sank. She patted the barrier of the enchantment. Xian. Xian. Where did Xian go? Why? Why did it suddenly disappear? She hammered the barrier. He was eager to rush out of the barrier. However, the moment she raised her hand and hammered again, like water, the barrier suddenly disintegrated. This made Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was being strangled by something, as the anxious and worried emotions invaded her body and mind. Don't worry. Old Man Song's voice came from his mind. Dizun only used the divine consciousness space to suck him, and that man called Yuzun into the divine consciousness space to fight. Divine awareness space? Was it similar to the space where she had entered the Azure Dew bracelet? Something like that. Old Man Song explained. Dizun should be clear that if they were to start a battle in the auction, based on their ability, they would definitely destroy the entire auction. Not only the people in the auction's array would die, the entire Earth boundary would not be spared. So Dizun thought of this idea. Entering the divine consciousness space to fight, no matter how ferocious the battle was, it would not affect everyone. Chapter 3756. Old Man Song was silent for a moment. But he knew Yiqing Luo's character very well. If he didn't answer, it would only make her more worried. He sighed and said, if the venerable sovereign is injured, his divine consciousness will also suffer great damage. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened as she looked towards the direction where Dmo Xian had disappeared in astonishment. But with venerable sovereign's strength, he won't allow himself to be injured. Old Man Song looked at Yiqing Luo's look and sighed helplessly. Didn't the overlord say that for you he will let himself get hurt? Since he chose to do this, he must have full confidence. If he hadn't reached the spirit-devouring formation and was me, then he wouldn't be like this. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as her eyes turned slightly red. There seemed to be something pressing down on her heart. It was very, very heavy. She could hardly breathe under the pressure. Little girl. Old Man Song didn't know how to comfort her. Suddenly, an ice-cold voice sounded. He didn't remove the barrier before he left just to let you be sad here. That voice was cold and indifferent. But it was like a sharp blade, fiercely stabbing into Yiqing Luo's eardrums. She suddenly raised her head and looked in the direction of the voice. Zhu Wuxin walked over expressionlessly. You can't participate in their battle and can't help much. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened as her face turned pale. She pursed her lips and lowered her eyes. She knew with her strength, she was totally unable to take part in the battle between Dmo Xian and Lord Yu. If she was worried about Dmo Xian and forcefully joined their battle, he would only be a burden. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's petite body started to tremble uncontrollably. She clenched her fists and her eyes reddened. Not enough, she was too weak. If she continued like this, when would she be able to walk side by side with Xian? When exactly would she be able to become even stronger? Why was she so weak? Yiqing Luo asked herself over and over again, sentence by sentence. It was as if he was possessed. The shadow and darkness in his heart were expanding infinitely. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's wrist tightened. A sharp pain came. Her consciousness cleared up a little. Before she could react, her delicate body suddenly leaned forward, and her entire body fell into a cold but wide embrace. Yiqing Luo was stunned and wanted to struggle. However, the man's cold voice drifted into her ears. During the first half a month in the land, I hugged you and took care of you like this every day. Are you not used to it? Yiqing Luo's petite body suddenly stiffened. Are you angry? Disappointed? You don't think you should trust me, right? Feeling the reaction of the person in his arms, Zhu Wuxin sneered. Unfortunately, you trust me so much that you think I won't do anything to you. He lowered his head and his breath got closer to her. Yiqing Luo, don't you understand men? Would a normal man be indifferent to a woman that he has been thinking about for so long? His approach made Yiqing Luo's slender brows crease tightly. Yiqing Luo's body shifted slightly as she avoided Zhu Wuxian's approach. However, his arm was still tightly gripping her wrist. It was very painful, but Zhu Wuxin did not intend to let go. Chapter 3757. Zhu Wuxian's lips curled upwards slightly, and under that grave and stern face, it revealed some evilness. Yiqing Luo's gaze turned slightly chilly as her tone turned chilly. Don't use this kind of childish tricks to sow discord between Xian and me. Don't belittle a man's jealousy. Zhu Wuxian saw that she wasn't as flustered and exasperated as he had imagined, nor was there any trace of flustered look. His brows unknowingly creased. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as the chill in her eyes deepened. Zhu Wuxian, don't turn yourself into a look that even you hate. Her words made Zhu Wuxian's expression retract bit by bit. Yiqing Luo took a faint glance at him as she started walking towards the direction of the battlefield. Zhu Wuxian was right about one thing. Before Xian entered the soul consciousness space, he specially released her barrier, not just to let her inner demons enter her body, to make her feel sorry for herself. Xian knew that she couldn't possibly stand at a safe place and watch the battle between the various powerhouses and Nether Palace. Thinking of this, the resolute glint in Yiqing Luo's eyes turned even brighter. Xian was still fighting with his injuries to stop Nether Palace's plans and actions. She couldn't sit here and wait for death. At least, these black-robed men in front of her must be dealt with. Furthermore, there was no time to lose. Even for her, in this array which was enveloped by the black sinister qi, she would be caught by the inner demons, almost losing control and being devoured by the inner demons. Not to mention the other cultivators. Yiqing Luo looked towards the direction of the black-robed men as her eyes squinted, sinister and treacherous. Just as she was about to leap over to the black-robed men's side, behind her, Zhu Wuxian's voice rang, Yiqing Luo. She didn't turn back. Zhu Wuxian had already quickened his pace as he teleported in front of her. Yiqing Luo raised her head to look at him. His brows creased as he looked at Yiqing Luo without blinking. What did you mean by that sentence earlier? Yiqing Luo hadn't reacted in time. What you said earlier. Zhu Wuxian, you said don't turn yourself into a look that even you hate. What makes you think that I will hate that kind of self? Yiqing Luo looked at him quietly. His eyes were calm and cold, without any ripples. A moment later, she opened her pink lips and said indifferently, Zhu Wuxian, what I said to you came from my heart. Zhu Wuxin was not someone who would take advantage of others when they were down. His pride would not allow him to do anything to her in that situation. Zhu Wuxin's words were just to stab her. However, even he himself would find it hard to accept such a method. He had never been one to use words to provoke or hurt others. Even he hated himself for being like this. Yiqing Luo took a deep look at him and didn't say another word. Shortly after, he directly passed him and leaped up onto Shiju's back. Then he summoned the Azure Dragon and charged into the black-robed people. Until Yiqing Luo had walked far away, Zhu Wuxin was still rooted to the spot. His body was stiff like a stone statue. What did he say to you, Ji? In his mind, the girl's sweet and firm voice seemed to ring. I don't understand Zhu Wuxian, but the only thing I can be sure of is that Zhu Wuxian is not that kind of person. What if I really do it? You won't. That firmness, that straightforwardness, that kind of trust. Zhu Wuxian's stiff hands slowly lifted up and pressed on his chest. An indescribable joy started to spread in his heart. After a long time, his lips curled as he laughed softly. Chapter 3758. The Other Side. After Yiqing Luo joined the battle, she brought along Shiju and Azure Dragon, totally oppressing those black-robed men one by one, as though they were dregs. The three underworlds were all dead. Pharaoh Crane was also dead. The black-robed men of the Netherworld Palace had no one to command. As for the profound practitioners who joined the Nether Palace, when the Nether Prime released his profound energy, a large number of them were killed by the shockwave. Those profound practitioners who were struggling at death's door right now wouldn't amount to anything. Those profound practitioners wanted to beg for mercy. Too late for regrets. But there was no room for regret. They had been imprinted with the mark of the abyss. If he had any thoughts of betraying the Palace of Darkness, he would explode and turn into a bloody mist. It was because they were afraid of death that they chose to join the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. At the same time, Yiqing Luo brought Azure Dragon and charged into the black-robed men, starting the battle. The surviving profound practitioners of the major forces had yet to recover from their daze. They looked in shock at the direction where Dmo Xian had disappeared, and looked at the red-robed young lady who was protected by the green dragon's huge body. Executive Elder A's face turned pale. His lips trembled as he spat out a few words. Did we hear it wrong? Just now, that purple-clothed man. That's His Majesty. Executive Laoyi asked. The cultivators from the other powers were shaking their heads in disbelief. Dizun, that man, was the overlord. The Dizun, who had disappeared for a long time, had actually appeared in the land. Overlord. Di Luo. Yiqing Luo. City Lord Lu muttered these few names softly, as though he suddenly understood something. She said she's called Di Luo, and wasn't lying to us. She merely took her husband's surname. Taking her husband's surname. When everyone heard these three words, they were stunned. Take her husband's surname. In other words, that woman named Yiqing Luo was the overlord's wife, the imperial madam. How dare they question Lady Di? Everyone looked towards the direction where Dmo Xian disappeared. He was also very curious. Why, ever since Dizun stepped into the auction, why didn't they notice the overlord's presence? They knew very well in their hearts. It was definitely not because they were fighting with the Palace of Darkness and did not notice the overlord. At that time, His Majesty seemed to be shrouded in a layer of gray mist, making it impossible to see his face clearly. It was as if it was completely inconspicuous. However, just as the overlord dispersed the mist and walked towards the man called Yuzun, all eyes were on the overlord. Brother Qiao. Pei Sheng's dark golden eyes widened as he looked at the figure among the black-robed men. He was shocked. Is she really the wife of His Majesty? At this moment, Pei Sheng was shocked. It looked a little like the shy young man who didn't have golden eyes. Qiao Yinyan did not speak. His expression congealed as he stared fixedly at Yiqing Luo's direction. In his deep eyes, there seemed to be a whirlpool surging. His energy surged. His silver hair was blown into a mess by the wind, and it hit his face. Brother Qiao. Pei Sheng nudged Qiao Yinyan when he didn't reply. Qiao Yinyan's eyelashes fluttered as he lowered his eyes and met Pei Sheng's dark golden eyes. His expression sunk slightly as he opened his mouth. What are you still in a daze for? Letting a Luo fight alone? Chapter 3759. Pei Sheng scratched his head, feeling that Qiao Yinyan's reaction was a little strange. Suddenly, a slap landed on the back of his head. Old Lai snorted. Just a blockhead like you. What can you understand? Hurry up and go over to help. What a waste of the energy that you had just ignited. After saying that, he leaped into the air, stepped on Pei Sheng's shoulder, and charged into the battlefield. Pei Sheng was dumbstruck from being stepped on, but seeing the both of them fighting on the battlefield, scratching the back of his head, he also charged in. The three of them made the various powerhouses cultivators react to the shock. They didn't hesitate any further as they swiftly charged into the battlefield. There weren't many dead corpse puppets on the Nether Palace's side. To be able to persist till now was merely because of their undying and indestructible physique. Even if the various powerhouses cultivators suffered heavy losses. But in terms of quantity, they still suppressed the Nether Palace by a large margin. A bunch of cultivators joined in. This instantly increased the pressure on the black-robed men's side. As the number of people who fell became more and more, Yiqing Luo was extremely glad that Lord Yu thought highly of himself. He was too blindly confident. He killed Yuji. Only then did they have a chance to catch their breath. Without the help of those heaven-defying monsters. This bunch of black-robed dead corpse puppets, no matter how undying and indestructible physique, they couldn't withstand the bombardment and encirclement of many cultivators. Especially with Yi Qing Luo's glower flame fan, Shiju and an azure dragon. This combination made their physique totally useless. The battlefield gradually regained its tranquility. The black-robed men all fell onto the ground, no longer reviving, no longer climbing up. Those cultivators who joined the Nether Palace stained the ground with their blood. Various powerhouses cultivators panted heavily as they looked at the blood-stained scene in front of them, feeling complicated. Yi Qing Luo returned to the ground. Looking at the battlefield which had been settled, she heaved a sigh of relief. She hugged Shiju, which had transformed into a leopard, into her arms. Imperial Madam, we've finally settled these monsters. What should we do next? Executive Elder's attitude towards Yi Qing Luo was much more respectful. Hearing Executive Elder's question, everyone's gazes immediately turned over. These Nether Palace monsters have been settled. But how do we walk out of the auction? If we continue to be trapped here, we will die sooner or later. Furthermore, have you guys noticed that the Yin energy around us is getting thicker and thicker? I feel like I'm even breathing in a mouthful of cold air. Everyone was flustered, but due to Yi Qing Luo's status, they only dared to complain in a low voice. Yi Qing Luo's gaze swept across the surroundings. Indeed, the Yin Qi here was getting thicker and thicker. This meant that the formation was assimilating into the auction. If he didn't think of a way to leave the auction, he would be dead. It was very likely that they would not be able to control their inner demons. In the end, they would kill each other and die miserably here. So, even if they killed all the monsters from the Palace of Darkness, it would be useless. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes. In his mind, he pictured the terrain of the auction, trying to determine the location of the formation core set up by the gloomy palace. As long as there was an opportunity to break the formation, he would definitely be able to break through this formation. After closing his eyes, his other senses would become extremely clear. Yi Qing Luo's ears suddenly twitched. She swiftly opened her eyes as her gaze fell onto the ground. What's the matter? Executive Elder was shocked by Yi Qing Luo's sudden action. Chapter 3760. What's that? When the crowd heard that, they looked towards the ground in panic. Just when everyone placed their senses on the ground, the crowd then felt it clearly. There seemed to be something on the ground, which was surging towards their direction at high speed. That's right. It was the feeling and sound from the ground. Everyone's expression changed greatly as they stared at the ground in alarm and worry, afraid that the ground would suddenly surge out, like those monsters earlier. A monster that they couldn't deal with. Hiss hiss. Rustle. Just as the crowd held their breaths and were alerted, a burst of sound of something rubbing against the ground was heard. Quick, look over there. Among the crowd, someone pointed to the front and shouted loudly. The crowd looked towards the direction of the voice. Then they saw that blood-stained ground. There were some densely packed black things, crawling quickly. The crowd also noticed it. Those densely packed things were all things that crawled out from the dead corpse puppets' bodies. One after another, like a patch of black sesame, densely spread out in front of their eyes. The crowd instantly felt their scalps turning numb. What are those things? Madam D, what are those? Why are they crawling out from those monsters' bodies? Those things. What are they trying to do? How should we deal with them? The crowd panicked as they anxiously asked Yi Qing Luo. When they saw that patch of densely packed black things, even Yi Qing Luo felt goosebumps all over her body. What were those things? Even if they asked her, she didn't know. Previously, when they crossed hands with this bunch of dead corpse puppets, other than the dead corpse puppets oozing out yin qi, there was no such situation. Although she couldn't guess what those black things were. But Yi Qing Luo was certain. Those things were absolutely not any weaker than that white teeth, blood teeth. Furthermore, these things were even scarier. That is, corpse puppet goo. The green dragon seemed to have recognized those things. As its whiskers floated up, its body suddenly made a turn. It spat out a burst of dragon's breath. As it blew those black things which were nearing quickly back, the dragon's breath swept up the wind, covering the sky and covering the earth, densely packed black things, densely laid out in front of them. Then it landed on the ground, and speedily rushed towards their direction. When the azure dragon was blowing his dragon breath, Yiqing Luo finally saw the ground clearly. What exactly were those densely packed things? They were black bugs about the size of a fingernail, one on top of the other. Densely packed together, they spread out. Corpse puppet parasite? Yiqing Luo repeated the name that Azure Dragon said. Parasite? That bug is a goo? The green dragon speedily swept up Yiqing Luo as she floated up into mid-air. What exactly is the corpse puppet parasite? This was the first time Yiqing Luo had seen the azure dragon having such a reaction towards a species. Azure dragon had a headache. The corpse puppet goo is a very evil goo technique. Those who create this goo technique are basically witchcraft masters. I'm afraid the Dark Palace is purposely using these corpse puppet goo to destroy the entire land. Yiqing Luo found out from the green dragon's mouth. The corpse puppet goo was a goo that was raised in corpses since young. It needed all kinds of corpses as fodder, and after being irrigated with fresh blood, the goo worms would be nurtured. This kind of insidious goo worm, don't look down on its small size. Chapter 3761. Because this goo worm could eat a person's heart and burrow into the heart to control the person's body. As long as that person's body hasn't decayed, the goo worms could control the body and use that person's identity to live. Most importantly, this kind of goo was not easy to discover. Even if ordinary goo masters came, they would not be able to find any traces of the corpse puppet goo. Even if they found out, they wouldn't be able to deal with them. For example, the things inside the ngoo incense could not suppress the corpse puppet goo at all. Such a sinister and terrifying corpse puppet goo, generally speaking, being able to nurture 10 out of 10,000 goo worms was already considered very successful. But now, Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she scanned the densely packed scene below her. There were at least tens of thousands of corpse puppet goo here. Why are there so many corpse puppet goo? No. Yiqing Luo sat on the green dragon's head as she looked at the pitch black below. These corpse puppet parasites had escaped from the corpse puppet parasite's body. And that means that the corpse puppet parasites were arranged by the Palace of Darkness. If the corpse puppet parasites and 3 nether failed, these corpse puppet parasites would replace them to complete the following mission. So many corpse puppet goo. The surviving profound practitioners of the major forces in the auction would become food for the corpse puppet goo. The goal of the Dark Nether Palace would be achieved. More importantly, at least tens of thousands of corpse puppet goo were released. There was no way to take it back. By the time the corpse puppet goo had devoured all the profound practitioners of the major forces in the auction, it was very likely that the Palace of Gloomy Darkness would remove the barrier of the auction. At that time, the corpse puppet goo were moving around everywhere in the land domain. The entire land. They would be consigned to eternal damnation. Azure Dragon, is there any way to deal with the corpse puppet parasite? Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as she asked. The azure dragon spat out a dragon's breath. No. Yiqing Luo looked down and her eyes suddenly froze. She placed Shiju on the azure dragon's back and immediately leapt up, diving down from the azure dragon's back. Be careful. Her fingertips moved and the glowing flame fan opened up. Strong profound energy turned into a hurricane as it swept downwards. Boom. The dark force hit the ground and created a strong wind, just in time to block the large group of corpse puppet goo that was charging up. The executive elder was so shocked that he took a step back. Xiao Yinyan and Pei Sheng also reacted quickly. They grabbed the executive elder's shoulders and pulled him back. The corpse puppet goo's attack was blocked. However, before the executive elder could heave a sigh of relief, that densely packed stretch of them had already knocked away the strong wind which Yiqing Luo had created earlier, as they swarmed over once again. There were a few profound practitioners who were too slow in retreating. A corpse puppet goo climbed onto his body. Subsequently, the dense mass of corpse puppet parasites swallowed that profounder. Not even his bones were left. The corpse puppet goo was very fast. They were densely packed and swarmed together, leaving no gaps at all. This was especially true for the profound practitioners. As long as they were touched, the corpse puppet parasites would quickly crawl all over their bodies and devour them in an instant. Even their souls would be devoured. The profound practitioners of the various great powers were stupefied. One by one they screamed, turned around and ran. Yi Qingluo landed next to Pei Sheng and the others, as she flipped her hand and swept up a hurricane, once again obstructing those corpse puppet parasites which were surging towards them. Chapter 3762. The speed of the cultivators from the major forces could not match up to the zombies. Seeing that Yi Qingluo was safe, they immediately rushed towards the direction of Yi Qingluo and the rest. Countless corpse puppet goo followed closely behind. From all directions, the densely packed corpse puppet goo swarmed towards the group. Don't come over. Don't come over. The executive elder's expression changed when he saw that. More and more zombies started to surround them. The wind created by the few of them could not withstand the invasion of thousands of zombies. No, if this goes on, we will all be devoured. Xiao Yinyan frowned slightly. Pei Sheng looked at the green dragon hovering in midair. Aluo, let the green dragon bring you away first. You will only be waiting for death if you stay. This place has been set up by the secluded palace. Unless we find a way to break the array, none of us can leave here. After Yi Qingluo finished her sentence, she looked at Pei Sheng. Moreover, I will not leave you all in danger and leave alone. Yi Qingluo waved her glower flame fan. A violent burst of profound energy shot out, instantly covering those zombies. A large number of zombies collided and squeezed in the dazzling red light. Yi Qingluo's fingertip moved. She injected another burst of profound energy. Those zombies that were covered were instantly shattered by the profound energy. A large wave of corpse puppet goo exploded into pieces. But dealing with this wave of zombies was of no use at all. There was still an endless stretch of zombies behind. These worms are so disgusting. Kitty Lee's face was filled with unbearable expression. Her little claws kept scratching her body. Even her hair was standing on end. Zoemo held her in his arms, stroked her little head and comforted her. It's all right, I will protect you. His words were gentle, but the expression on his face was extremely cold. Awu. Zoemo stroked Kitty Lee's fur while looking at the expressionless Gue Wu. Do you have any way to deal with this damn thing? Yes. Gue Wu lightly spat out a word. Zomo's eyes lit up and was about to ask what was the solution. But he heard Gue Wu lightly spitting out the next sentence. There's no way here. Zoemo understood Gue Wu's meaning. In this place, the auction was trapped by the array. Even if he had a way, he couldn't use it. Stop these corpse puppet goo from approaching first. Reduce the number of deaths. Yi Qingluo also understood their conversation. Before there was no other way. He could only choose to stop it. The more people died, the worse it would be for them. Shrugging his shoulders, Zoemo shot a glance at Gue Wu. Both of them exerted their strength at the same time. Their xianqi exploded and charged forward. Pei Sheng and the others quickly joined the interdiction team. Wave after wave of corpse puppet goo were torn apart. But soon after wave of corpse puppet goo came. This caused everyone's scalps to go numb, and a wave of despair instantly assaulted them. Calm down. If we lose our footing, we will give those bugs a chance. The executive elder shouted at the top of his lungs. Do you see Madame D, young Master Qiao and young Master Pei? Do you see those people? Everyone unite. These insects aren't like the monsters from before that can counter our attacks. The profound practitioners of the major forces were originally a little afraid, but as the number of corpse puppet goo increased, the surging also became more and more intense. Xiao Yinyan and the others couldn't take care of everyone. Chapter 3763. Various powerhouses cultivators joined in. This didn't make Yi Qingluo and the rest feel relaxed. The corpse puppet goo swarmed over in an overwhelming manner. It was as if a layer of black carpet had been laid out for the entire auction. Yiqing Luo's trypophobia was about to act up. They couldn't stop to rest. If they were not careful, they would be swallowed by the corpse puppet goo. No one was willing to take their own lives as a joke. All of them gathered their attention to stop the corpse puppet goo. Yiqing Luo's actions had almost become her body's instinct. She pursed her lips tightly as her vision swept across the surroundings. She wanted to find the Wu Gu master behind the scenes who was controlling these corpse puppet goo. But her perceptive ability couldn't sense any other aura in the surroundings at all. If this went on, everyone would either be swallowed by the corpse puppet goo or die of exhaustion of profound energy. After going through one battle after another, all the profound practitioners' minds and bodies were exhausted to the extreme. Now they were fighting with a bunch of worms. Almost everyone had started to feel numb. Thinking of the conversation between Zhou Emo and Gue Wu earlier, Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her profound energy and increased her strength as she struck the incoming corpse puppet goo flying. Her figure flashed as she appeared in the direction of the ghost martial artist. She just moved, which revealed a gap. The wave of corpse puppet goo which Yiqing Luo struck had exploded for just a moment. The corpse puppet goo at the back had already taken the opportunity to attack this gap. Roar! Shiju growled as it pounced down from the green dragon's back, replacing Yiqing Luo's position earlier. Its claw came down. It carried the might of the dragon clan and mirage beast. It turned into a stream of chi waves as it tore those corpse puppet goo apart. The green dragon let out a low growl as it bent down. The dragon's breath spewed out as it rolled up the might of a sacred beast. Yiqing Luo nodded towards the two battle pets and looked at Gue Wu as she asked, "Master Gue Wu, you said there is a way to deal with these corpse puppet goo, what is it?" "Settle the Wu Gu master," Gue Wu replied. Yiqing Luo replied, "Wu Gu master? I didn't sense anyone else's presence in the auction. Is the Wu Gu master here?" A big shot like Gue Wu, his perceptive ability was definitely above hers. "Not here," Gue Wu replied straightforwardly, causing Yiqing Luo's hope to be extinguished. But what made Yiqing Luo curious was, the Wu Gu master was not in the auction. Then, how did these corpse puppet goo hide in the bodies of the corpse puppets? And why did they only start to move now? And, most importantly, these corpse goo swarmed in wave after wave. It seemed like there was no order. But from the process of fighting against these corpse puppet goo and stopping them, Zhang Xian didn't know how to deal with them. These corpse puppet goo. These corpse puppet goo were orderly as they carried out their tasks. Without the control of a Wu Gu master, how did these corpse puppet goo attack in such an orderly manner? Little Qing Luo, you'd better not think about such a complicated matter. No matter how much you think, you won't be able to get the answer. Zoemo also leaned over as his narrow phoenix eyes shot a glance at Yiqing Luo and continued. Actually, there are many ways to deal with the corpse puppet goo, but we're trapped in this array, so no matter how many ways there are, we won't be able to test it out. Yiqing Luo asked, "What are the methods you mentioned?" Yiqing Luo's words had just landed. Chapter 3764. What happened? The duo's reaction made Yiqing Luo look over in alarm. The ground that was originally covered with corpse puppet goo rose up like a small hill. It was more like something was about to break out of the ground. The corpse puppet goo avoided that arched hill because of the changes in the ground. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted abruptly. Something is approaching us from the ground. Could it be a new plan of the Palace of Darkness? Not necessarily. Gue Wu indifferently replied. It could also be a helper. Helpers? Yiqing Luo couldn't help but twitched her lips in ridicule. Under such circumstances, would we still have helpers? Was he referring to the Emperor of the Earth Domain? Or Historian of Balance? Or someone from the upper realm? Yiqing Luo's tone was filled with ridicule. The Linggue Marshal General looked at her. You seem to be very hostile towards the forces of the upper realm? It's not hostility. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as a smile surfaced in her eyes. It's just that I'm simply unable to agree with their actions of not taking responsibility for their high positions. He met the historian of balance in the Nirvana realm. Yiqing Luo didn't have any good impression of the balance historian. Their existence was said to restrict the balance of the major realms. But what really happened, master? Indeed, they did not see anyone for a long time. Yiqing Luo had some doubts. The person behind the gloomy palace was actually the master of the so-called balance historian, and the so-called heavenly Tao, right? Even an invisible person like her could see through the goal of gloomy palace. She didn't believe it. The so-called heavenly axiom, and those in power in the upper realm would not notice these little tricks. However, the Nirvana realm was almost destroyed, and no one cared. The Earth domain was also in imminent danger. Still, no one showed any interest. Heh, it was ridiculous, right? When Gue Wu heard Yiqing Luo's words, the ridiculing expression on his face became even more obvious. He furrowed his brows. There are a lot of things that can affect everything if you pull one hair. It's not that the people of the upper realm are unwilling to get involved, it's just that things are too complicated. At this point, his voice paused and his brows furrowed even more. He did not continue speaking and continued to organize those corpse puppet goo. Yiqing Luo didn't pursue further. However, there was a question in his heart. Gue Wu had always been a person of few words. Apart from martial arts, there was nothing else that could interest him. Just now, such a person wanted to explain to her about her misunderstanding of the people in the upper realm. Could it be? Wasn't Gue Wu also a member of the balance historian? Or one of the powers in power in the upper realm? Ka-cha! Suddenly, the sound of the ground exploding interrupted Yiqing Luo's thoughts. A crack slowly appeared on the small hill on the ground, and it tore apart towards both sides. Hiss hiss. The corpse puppet goo that was crawling on the ground suddenly seemed to have lost its target. It began to crawl around randomly. Many corpse puppet goo smelled the blood on the ground and pounced over, devouring the corpses on the ground at once. All the corpse puppet goo fell into chaos. It was originally a neat, orderly, and densely packed mass. Now there was no order to it, and it was running all over the place at this moment. The arched ground began to shake and the mountains began to shake. More and more things surged up from the ground. From the crack, a huge black shadow suddenly scurried out. Following that, everyone saw something long sweeping past their eyes. All the corpse puppet goo surrounding the crack, they disappeared in a split second. Chapter 3765. That's right. It had been swallowed. What was this thing? It even dared to swallow the corpse puppet goo. Yiqing Luo immediately looked over. She saw a huge mouth in front of her. His mouth was wide open, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth that looked like sharp blades. Opening its mouth, closing it, as though it could bite through everything in the world. Yiqing Luo's pupils shrank. Strange. Strange beast. This thing with only one mouth, wasn't it the one she saw in the Nirvana realm when she participated in the Academy's competition? Strange beast. Similar to a mutated dragon, it could change into something according to the surrounding environment. Strange beast. There was such a thing in the Earth realm. Hey female hero, we meet again. That huge mouth opened wide towards Yiqing Luo, as he sniggered out. The breath it exhaled was very fishy. His red tongue kept swaying back and forth. Yiqing Luo. Alright, this mutated beast was the same mutated beast that she had met in the Nirvana realm. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. Why are you here? While she was asking, another corpse puppet goo rushed over. Yiqing Luo was about to release her profound energy. The mutated beast swiped its tongue, and swept those corpse puppet goo into its stomach. It chewed a few times with a crunching sound. Inside its bloody mouth, black bugs were surging out in a dense manner. Then, the strange beast swallowed the corpse puppet goo. Amen, just like that it swallowed it. Yiqing Luo, who witnessed this scene, was dumbfounded. Didn't this thing like to eat meat? Now it even ate worms? How hungry was this child? After swallowing the corpse puppet goo, the strange beast's tongue swept its sharp teeth and grinned at Yiqing Luo. Female hero, the omnipotent ball is here to save you. Yiqing Luo felt that the bloody mouth, after swallowing the corpse puppet goo, became even more smelly. It was so smelly that she wanted to hammer it to shut its mouth. In fact, Yiqing Luo really did that. She leaped up and stepped on the strange beast's bald, slippery head. With this one step, Yiqing Luo had obviously stepped into its bloody mouth. Why have you come to the Earth domain? What are you doing here? Yiqing Luo kicked its head. Answer properly, I don't have time to joke with you. The mutant's round body was pressed against the ground. Its tongue was hanging out of its mouth, swinging around. It's the master who asked me to help you. Let go of me. Release me. If you trample on my cute little head, master will feel sorry for me. Yiqing Luo. She was really sorry. She totally couldn't see how this thing was cute. Before you call her cute, can you retract that tongue of yours? Master? Yiqing Luo kicked it. Who is the master you're talking about? Apart from being able to transform into anything in the world, there was actually someone who could form a contract with an ugly monster that had no attack power at all. That person had even allowed this ugly creature with no attacking power to come to the Earth domain to help her. The mutant opened its mouth and said, My master is your good sister, the most beautiful, kind-hearted, and adorable Xiaoying. Moying? Yiqing Luo was surprised. Moying actually formed a contract with a mutated beast. That time in the array designed by the Dark Forces. Chapter 3766. How did Shadow know I'm here? And even specially asked you to come over? Although she believed the strange beast's words, but Yiqing Luo still had some doubts. The strange beast rolled one round on the ground and started to chomp on the corpse puppet goo on the ground. That huge mouth seemed to be filled forever. It was making a ji-bung-bung sound as it replied. Yiqing Luo. Master said that you would definitely need to do some sneaky things in the Earth boundary, and I'm the best tool for that, so he sent me over to help you. As it spoke, its tongue flicked around. The densely packed corpse puppet goo were still crawling around in its mouth. Yiqing Luo had goosebumps all over her body, although this strange beast didn't have much attack power. But its ability to eat worms was still quite strong. Most importantly, after the strange beast finished eating the corpse puppet goo, there was no reaction at all. It seemed like it had been eaten. Those corpse puppet goo had completely disappeared. Moreover, when the corpse puppet goo climbed onto the strange beast's body and tried to swallow it. But no matter how they climbed onto the strange beast's body, or they would be slippery and fall down, or they couldn't even bite into it. Slippery, round and bulging. The corpse puppet goo couldn't do anything to the strange beast. Especially now, after the strange beast drilled out from the ground. Not sure if it had destroyed the array, or destroyed the connection between the corpse puppet goo and the goo master. These corpse puppet goo were scurrying around without any order at all. This caused the mutant to be extremely happy as it ate to it. Although these corpse puppet goo ate corpses and had been nurtured until now. But in any case, it was still meat. As long as it was meat, it would be its favorite. Looking at the strange beast eating till its mouth was black, Yiqing Luo didn't even want to take another look at it. Shadow sent you over. How did you find me here? And you even know how to dig a hole in the ground? The strange beast shook its tongue and replied. Master said, Master asked me to dig a hole in the ground, Shadow? Shadow knew she was trapped in the auction, and specially asked the strange beast to dig a hole in the ground, and linked it to the strange beast that could eat the corpse puppet goo. Shadow, did she know something? Then how about her? Yiqing Luo asked. Master didn't come here. He just told me to. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips, and after listening to the first half of her sentence, she couldn't be bothered to listen to the second half. She looked in all directions at the insects covering the ground and interrupted its words. You came just in time. There are too many corpse puppet goo here. Since you like to eat them all. The appearance of the strange beast made Yiqing Luo's side much more relaxed. However, it was still somewhat difficult for the other profound practitioners. Especially the corpse puppet parasites that had lost their order. Although it was easier to deal with them, it was also not easy. But it was still easier than dealing with the waves of orderly attacks from before. However, these corpse puppet goo were crawling all over the place. There was less pressure to deal with it. However, the frequency of attacks was much higher. If he was careless, a corpse puppet goo might crawl into his body. The strange beast heard Yi Qingluo's words. His swinging tongue immediately stopped. It was as if he was frightened. After a long time, it swayed its tongue and said, "Master, I knew you wanted to kill me, so he specially asked me to bring a helper." Its words had just ended. Suddenly its body fell. Its bloody mouth was facing the sky. An extremely strange cry came out from its mouth. Chapter 3767. As the cries of the strange beast grew louder, that straight tongue formed the vibrations of the sound waves, twisting and turning. Following that, the ground suddenly shook. The ground was like a ripple, rolling over. One round after another. The ripples were getting faster and faster. Everyone's gaze was focused on that direction. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of something breaking through the ground was heard. Immediately following that, in the huge hole in the ground, countless round and slippery mutant beasts crawled out of the hole. They only had a bloody mouth on their surface. These strange beasts were the size of a huge rock. In an instant, they occupied a third of the auction venue. Yi Qingluo estimated that there were at least 50 over. Strange beasts. Hey, ugly monster. Yi Qingluo looked at the complacent strange beast in front of her. The corners of her mouth twitched. You. Where did you get so many strange beasts? Don't ask her how she could see the complacent expression of the strange beast from its mouth. Anyway, she could see it. The strange beast instantly exploded. Its tongue flicked, expressing its anger. Master gave me a name. I am called Qiu Qiu, not ugly monster. Qiu Qiu. This name was too cute, really not suitable to be used on a strange beast. You need our help now. Treat me better. If you make me unhappy, I will not help you deal with those disgusting bugs. The strange beast snorted arrogantly. Yi Qingluo glanced at it. Looking at its bloody mouth, which was filled with corpse puppet goo, Zhang Xian felt a chill run down his spine. If it was disgusting, was there a need to keep eating it? Furthermore, he was eating so noisily. It was obvious that he was enjoying the food. Let me tell you, Master said, as long as I bring a bunch of brothers over to help you, you will be in charge of our meat. We are carnivores. We want to eat meat. The strange beast stuck out its tongue again. The robotic voice shook Yi Qingluo's ears to the point of pain. Stop the nonsense since you're here. Hurry up and start eating. Let's finish eating these worms first. Yi Qingluo lifted her leg and kicked it towards the direction where the corpse puppet parasites were. Qiu Qiu rolled around in a circle and muttered a few words. It obediently called out to the other mutated beasts and started to feast on the corpse puppet goo. The profounders from the various powers were dumbfounded as they stared at the sudden reversal of the situation. More than 50 mutated beasts appeared. They finally had time to catch their breath and rest. The two executive elders put down their weapons and sat on the ground, sweating profusely. Madam, thank you so much. You've saved everyone again. The profound practitioners of the various major powers immediately expressed their gratitude. Yi Qingluo waved her hand. You don't have to thank me, it's the contribution of these strange beasts. After this matter is over, it's enough for you to treat these strange beasts well. The executive elder and the profound practitioners of the various great forces nodded repeatedly. Well said, well said. As long as I can leave this damn place alive. What was the point of taking out some meat to entertain these aberrations? As long as these strange beasts could protect their lives. Even if they had to eat till they were poor, they were willing. Yi Qingluo's gaze swept across the surroundings and finally landed on the direction of the black hole which the strange beasts had drilled out from. Chapter 3768. Aluo. Xiao Yinyan frowned as he called out to Yi Qingluo. It's too dangerous for you to go alone. With Azure Dragon around, I'll be fine. Yi Qingluo smiled at him. Pei Sheng's dark golden eyes flashed. He didn't agree with Pei Sheng's suggestion. Aluo, Brother Qiao is right. The Palace of Darkness is too cunning. No one knows what kind of strange things will appear in the next second. Even with Azure Dragon, it is still too dangerous. Yi Qingluo knew that they were worried about her. at this critical juncture. Acting alone was simply an act of courting death. But she had to find the eye of the array as soon as possible and crack this array. She could feel that following the appearance of the corpse puppet goo, the atmosphere of the entire auction was getting gloomier and gloomier, as if every breath was filled with cold air. The reason why the cultivators from the major forces had yet to notice was because they were experiencing a life and death battle, and were drenched in sweat. When they relaxed a little, Yi Zichen, this cold and evil Inchi, would definitely corrode them. Moreover, Yi Qingluo's vision slowly looked towards the direction where Dmo Xian disappeared. Her charming eyes were filled with a trace of hazy tenderness. Xian is still fighting for me. I also want to do something. At least when he returns in triumph, I can go home with him. Her voice was very gentle. When she mentioned Xian, her eyes were filled with deep affection. Everyone was stunned by these words. Pei Sheng was the first to compromise. Then, Luo, you have to be careful. I will. Yi Qingluo's lips curled up as she replied with a sweet smile. Just as she was about to walk towards Azure Dragon, a hand was placed in front of Yi Qingluo. Xiao Yinyan's expression was grave. His deep eyes stared deeply at Yi Qingluo. His silver hair slapped on his face made his expression look somewhat unreal. He opened his mouth. Luo, if you insist on going, I'll accompany. I'll accompany her. Xiao Yinyan hadn't finished his words. A voice that was as cold as ice interrupted his words. That voice was very light, but it was filled with unquestionable courage. He had effortlessly suppressed Xiao Yinyan's imposing manner. Xiao Yinyan pursed his lips, his face ashen as he looked in the direction of the voice. What is the meaning of this, pavilion master? I'll accompany her. It's safer than you. Zhu Wuxin's expression was indifferent. Xiao Yinyan gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He was indignant, but he couldn't refute this fact. Yi Qingluo saw the atmosphere between the both of them getting fiercer and fiercer as she hurriedly coughed lightly. Then let's do it this way. We'll go investigate the surrounding situation first. Be careful and don't let your guard down. She didn't allow Xiao Yinyan and the others to follow her. He was worried that the Palace of Gloomy Darkness would come up with some sinister tricks. With the Azure Dragon's protection, she was not afraid. However, she could not guarantee Xiao Yinyan's safety. However, Zhu Wuxin was different. Putting aside the fact that Zhu Wuxin's strength was clearly not much different from the palace master behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness. Otherwise, there would not be the talk of working together. And then there was Zhu Wuxin. In any case, no matter what she said, she would not be able to persuade Zhu Wuxin. In that case, he would just let him follow. After exhorting a few words, Yi Qingluo kept Shiju into the pet space as she flipped over and leapt onto the back of the Azure Dragon, which had transformed into a normal size, flying towards the front. Zhu Wuxin leapt up and stood on the back of the Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon's tail moved, as though it wanted to slap him away. Chapter 3769. The Azure Dragon exhaled, and did not continue to use its tail to torment Zhu Wuxin. With two people on his back, he turned into a streak of blue light, and disappeared before everyone's eyes. After a few twists and turns in the auction, the towering and magnificent buildings had already collapsed, and turned into a pile of ruins. The eaves were crushed, and the beams and pillars of the house fell to the ground. Yi Qingluo had been flying one round in the skies above the auction. As she took a look at the auction as a whole, she raised her head and looked at the barrier above her head. He approached the edge of the formation from a close distance. Yi Qingluo could see it clearly. About 20 meters above the auction, there was a transparent barrier that looked like rippling water. Indistinctly, one could see the rampaging black gas twining around them. As Azure Dragon carried Yi Qingluo on his back and neared them, that black chi actually turned into a huge ferocious beast as it opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Yi Qingluo. That stance seemed as though it wanted to swallow Yi Qingluo into its stomach. There was a barrier between them. Yi Qingluo could feel the yin chi rushing towards her. But Yi Qingluo didn't have any intention to evade when that black chi opened its bloody mouth. She quietly raised her head and watched the bloody mouth descend. He looked calm and indifferent. Even the expression in his eyes did not change at all. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian's brows creased as he gave a low rebuke in displeasure, speedily approaching Yiqing Luo as he stretched out his hand in an attempt to pull her away. But in the next instant, the black gas that had formed a bloody mouth smashed into the barrier of the formation. Instantly, it turned into a cloud of black smoke and disappeared. Zhu Wuxin's outstretched hand stiffened. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as she slapped Zhu Wu Xian's hand away. "We're in the array, she can't enter." Zhu Wuxin's eyes flickered, and he withdrew his hand. "I need to find the core of this formation and break it." Yiqing Luo took another look at the transparent profound wave above her head as she pursed her lips slightly. "Zhu Wu Xian, towards the Palace of Seclusion, you're more familiar with it. What do you think this array is?" Zhu Wuxin's eyes were still lowered, staring at his retracted hand in a daze. Hearing Yiqing Luo's question, he suddenly raised his head. A pair of jet-black icy cold eyes directly met with Yiqing Luo's eyes. He was stunned for a moment, until Yiqing Luo repeated the question. Only then did Zhu Wuxin move his thin lips and say calmly, "I am only cooperating with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness for a certain purpose, but I do not know much about the Palace of Gloomy Darkness." He paused and seemed to have thought of something as he stared at Yiqing Luo, and spoke in an extremely serious tone. "I'm working together with the Palace of Darkness, but it doesn't mean that I'm doing things in the same way as them. Towards the Palace of Darkness, I despise the insidious tricks they play in the dark." Yiqing Luo. She was slightly shocked by Zhu Wu Xian's serious explanation. She expressed that she only thought that Zhu Wuxin was knowledgeable and would know the name of this formation. He didn't think too much about it. Zhu Wuxin had actually imagined so much? Wouldn't it be a little too embarrassing? Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she replied, "I'm just asking casually. Since you don't know, let's check again and find the array first." Without waiting for Zhu Wuxin's reply, Yiqing Luo had already made the green dragon fly downwards. It circled around the huge rock ruins for half a round or so. Yiqing Luo suddenly called out to the green dragon. She lowered her head as she looked at a certain spot below. That pair of narrow, long, charming eyes were sparkling brilliantly, like the brilliance of the sun and moon, dazzling and eye-catching. Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her hand. The glower flame fan in her hands suddenly opened up. Chapter 3770. The glower flame fan instantly rotated as it floated above Yiqing Luo's palm. She raised the other hand as profound energy enveloped her palm, and injected it into the glower flame fan. The glower flame fan rotated faster and faster. All of a sudden, it turned into a sharp blade and charged towards a certain direction on the ground. The force of the dive was extremely strong. The bewitching red glow was extremely dazzling. The majestic profound energy also revolved around the glower flame fan, which created a hurricane. Bam! The glower flame fan landed heavily on the ground. A deafening explosion was heard, accompanied by the shaking of the earth and mountains. Between the shattered rocks, a huge deep pit was blasted out at a certain place. The remaining profound cheese might was still wantonly spreading. Billowing dust obscured everything in front of them. The green dragon was nearer to the ground. Dust and shattered rocks flew all over Yiqing Luo and Zhu Wu Xian's faces. Zhu Wu Xian flicked his sleeves as he shook off the aftermath in front of him. He frowned as his cold eyes swept towards Yiqing Luo. Towards Yiqing Luo's actions, he was extremely puzzled. But he didn't ask the reason why Yiqing Luo did this. He only pursed his lips tightly as he stared at Yiqing Luo, waiting for her next move. Yiqing Luo didn't have any intention to dodge the flying shattered rocks and dust. Instead, she leapt upwards, leaping down from the green dragon's back. She headed towards that deep pit which was shaking with the remaining might. She quickly stopped on a huge rock which was about to collapse and fall into the deep pit. The huge rock swayed slightly as it fell a little towards the deep pit. Even the surface of the huge rock had a few cracks on it. Yiqing Luo carefully nudged her feet as she neared the huge pit. When the green dragon saw this, it immediately charged down and circled around Yiqing Luo's side, protecting her at all times. Zhu Wu Xian, who was standing on the green dragon's back, was also brought over by the green dragon. He took a look at Yi Qingluo's careful look as she stood on the huge rock. In his icy cold eyes, an undetectable glint flashed past. Pursing his thin lips tightly, his brows rose slightly. He suddenly leapt up from the green dragon's back. His figure was light as he landed beside Yi Qingluo. The huge rock which was suspended in midair was originally unstable as it swayed, and hung by the side of the huge pit. Zhu Wuxin approached. Suddenly, the boulder lost its balance and fell into the pit. When the boulder shook, Yi Qingluo couldn't help but stared fiercely at Zhu Wuxian. Just as the boulder was about to collapse, he leaped up. Just as he landed, he stepped on another boulder. Zhu Wuxin's body suddenly pressed closer. His hand stretched out directly as he clasped onto Yi Qingluo's shoulder. Then the other hand wrapped around her. It was as if he wanted to pull her into his arms. Zhu Wuxian. Yi Qingluo was stunned by Zhu Wuxian's actions. As he stretched out his other hand, she immediately raised her hand and blocked Zhu Wuxin's wrist. "Let go. I'll support you so there's no need for you to stand." Zhu Wuxian's cold eyes met her eyes and explained. Yi Qingluo's lips twitched. "I don't need it." Zhu Wuxin's expression did not change. "Why do you like rejecting me so much? I don't have the energy to stay here and discuss this topic with you." Yi Qingluo pushed his hand away from her shoulder. "I only want to find the direction of the erase eye and find the witch Gu master who is controlling the corpse puppet Gu. Then wait for Xian's victorious return and leave with him. As for the rest, I don't want to." After she pushed Zhu Wuxian away, her figure flashed as she speedily stepped onto another piece of more dangerous huge rock. But she staggered extremely. Chapter 37-71. Zhu Wuxian fixed his eyes on her petite figure as he tried his best to maintain his balance. His expression sunk slightly as the chill in his eyes grew even more. Yi Qingluo felt his icy cold gaze. But she didn't want to give any response. Zhu Wuxian's stubbornness had already seeped deep into his bone marrow. Even if she rejected him explicitly, Zhu Wuxian wouldn't listen to her. So she couldn't be bothered to emphasize that she wouldn't accept any feelings from him. Actions to prove it was the real proof. Yi Qingluo concealed the emotions in her eyes as she refocused her attention on the deep pit. The remnant mite was still vibrating. The rolling airwaves and dust made the entire deep pit look hazy. She stretched out her slender white wrist towards the deep pit. Her 5 fingers opened up. Swoosh! A sound that cut through the air was heard. A fiery remnant shadow flashed past and landed into Yi Qingluo's palm. It was the glower flame fan. Yi Qingluo held the glower flame fan as her profound energy burst forth. Immediately after, it swept up a hurricane as it charged into the deep pit. The surrounding remnant mite and the billowing dust were all lingering in the hurricane. The situation in the deep pit. It was clearly reflected in Yi Qingluo's eyes. Yi Qingluo bent over slightly as she looked into the deep pit. The spacious and long deep pit was filled with shattered rocks. "What are you looking for?" Zhu Wuxian stood in the air as he stood behind her, his brows creased slightly. Yi Qingluo didn't reply as her gaze swiftly wandered among the shattered rocks. Suddenly, her gaze stopped at a certain spot. Her lips curled as she laughed softly. "Found it." Immediately after, she leapt up and stepped into the deep pit. Zhu Wuxian followed closely behind. Yi Qingluo used her profound energy to carve out a path among the shattered rocks. Zhu Wuxian then saw that under the shattered rocks, a broken black vine was revealed. That vine was different from ordinary vines. The surface of the vine was covered with layers of sharp thorns. And densely packed, big and small holes occupied the entire vine. It was faintly mixed with strands of evil qi. "This is..." Zhu Wuxian frowned slightly when he saw the vine. He sensed an extremely uncomfortable feeling from the vines. A Gu master's medium to control the corpse puppet Gu. Yi Qingluo stared at the vine for a long time, as she opened her mouth with a grave expression. The witchcraft master used this vine to control thousands of corpse puppet Gu, which means to say, by following this vine, we will be able to find the witchcraft master. She paused and looked at the other end, at the vines that were still in the rock wall, and said, "This place might be the core of the formation." When Zhu Wu Xian heard that, he looked at Yiqing Luo's expression as it gradually turned gentle. A pair of cold eyes stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. For some reason, Yiqing Luo had a strange feeling being stared at by him. Because her analysis made him feel very satisfied. This thought had just flashed across his mind. Then Zhu Wuxin asked, "How did you discover this place?" Yiqing Luo replied, "Because of the mutated beast. Based on the direction in which the aberration beast emerged, as well as the fluctuations from the aberration beast, as well as the terrain of the auction, I was able to deduce its location." She narrowed her eyes. The expression on her face was slightly solemn and cold. "Let's hurry up and find the witchcraft master and the array core, to settle the auction." As Yiqing Luo said that, she tried to use her profound energy to touch that vine. However, before his dark force came into contact with the vines, Zhu Wu Xian seemed to have sensed something as his expression suddenly turned cold. He swiftly stretched out his hand, trying to pull Yiqing Luo to his side. Chapter 3772. Under the deep pit, the dark light swept out and illuminated the entire space. Yiqing Luo felt a strong suction force, causing her red robe and black hair to curl up wildly. She could even feel an extremely dangerous aura rapidly spreading towards her. Danger. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. She didn't even have time to turn back. Meanwhile, Zhu Wuxin's hand reached out to her. Yiqing Luo had no chance to hesitate. She quickly stretched out her hand towards Zhu Wuxin's palm. She had to get rid of this terrifying suction force. However, her hand had yet to approach Zhu Wuxin. That terrifying suction force instantly swallowed her whole body. The azure dragon instantly turned into a ray of green light and returned to Yiqing Luo's pet space. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian sped up, wanting to rush into the whirlpool together with her. But when Yiqing Luo's figure disappeared into the whirlpool black hole, the vortex quickly turned into a bolt of lightning. With a flash, it disappeared into thin air. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes were cold and sharp as he raised his palm, pushing it towards the direction where the whirlpool had disappeared. The ice-cold aura seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth. At this moment, the broken vines that had lost all signs of life suddenly seemed to have received some kind of order. When Zhu Wu Xian wasn't paying attention, suddenly, it charged towards Zhu Wu Xian's direction and wrapped around him. The vines were extremely fast. The vines were densely packed with small holes, and dense evil energy seeped out. They were like open mouths that wanted to swallow Zhu Wuxin. Scram! Zhu Wu Xian was anxious, his expression as cold as ice. When the vines got close, he waved his sleeves and split the vines apart. The vines were torn apart and hung limply on the gravel. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes sunk gloomily. Because he had witnessed Yiqing Luo disappearing right in front of his eyes, he was vexed and infuriated, making him unable to vent the anger in his heart. Suddenly, the words that Yiqing Luo said earlier rang in his mind. His cold eyes narrowed slightly, and his killing intent immediately manifested. Dark Nether Palace. Dark Nether Palace. Yiqing Luo had mentioned before that this vine was most probably the medium for the witchcraft master to control the corpse puppet Gu. It was also the direction of the eye of the formation. Since the Abyss Palace dared to hurt Yiqing Luo, then he would destroy the plan of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. He was determined to break this array formation. The coldness in Zhu Wu Xian's eyes was like a storm on a snowy mountain, sweeping through his pupils. He stared at the vine and slowly walked towards it. Suddenly, a shrill, sinister, and trembling voice rang out. Young Master Chu, please show mercy." Zhu Wuxin's footsteps halted. The source of the sound was the vine. He lowered his cold eyes and looked at the vine. The vine swayed its long and thin branches and said with a flattering smile, "Young Master Chu and the Palace of Gloomy Shadows used to be partners. There's no need to make things so awkward for such a small matter." Zhu Wuxin did not say anything. He was probably used to Zhu Wuxin's indifference. The vine continued. "As long as young Master Chu is an outsider and doesn't interfere in this matter, The Palace of Gloomy Darkness promises to do anything for young Master Chu unconditionally. Chu Wuxin raised his eyes slightly, and in his eyes, there was a glimmer. The vine naturally detected Zhu Wuxin's change and immediately laughed. Young Master Chu has worked together with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness for many years, so you should understand the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Since this is the condition that we have promised to young Master Chu, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness will definitely abide by it. After a long time. Chapter 37-73. The person on the other end of the vine was startled by the long silence, and felt his hair stand on end. Not getting an answer, he coughed lightly to break the deadlock. Young Patriarch Chu, what do you think? A light laugh, like a cold wind brushing past one's face. Zhu Wuxian's thin lips curled into an extremely faint cold arc. His jet-black pupils were deep and icy cold, encircling layers of storms. He laughed. His laughter was icy cold. It made one's heart turn cold. On the other side, Yi Qingluo was being sucked by that terrifying suction force, as she felt the world spinning around her. Following that, she was thrown heavily onto the ground. The impact force made her frown in pain. She hadn't reacted in time to what was going on. Suddenly, a strong sense of danger gushed out from the bottom of her heart. It was almost her body's instinct. Yi Qingluo slapped the ground fiercely. Her body quickly rolled a few rounds on the ground. The intense pain on her body intensified, and boiling hot blood, seeping out from her wound. But she didn't have time to check on her wound. The place where she was at earlier. A burst of energy which seemed to be able to destroy the heaven and earth came crashing down. Even though she had avoided that burst of energy, Yi Qingluo was still unable to avoid the remnant energy, as she flew out once again. The moment her body rose into the sky, Yi Qingluo swiftly circulated her profound jade heart, and used her profound energy to drag her body, preventing her body from crashing onto the ground once again, causing her wound to worsen. What made her most surprised was that valiant energy which made one appalled. When she crashed onto the ground wasn't damaged at all. Profound light flashed and swept past. Then it dissipated in front of her eyes. What on earth was going on? That burst of boundless profound energy that was so strong that even her breathing felt oppressive. It absolutely couldn't be faked. And that intimidating remnant energy, she could feel it clearly. But why wasn't there any impact on the surrounding environment at all? Her slender brows creased tightly. Just as she was about to raise her head and look towards the direction where the energy came from, suddenly, a panicked and worried voice sounded beside his ear. Lil Luoer? Yi Qingluo's body suddenly stiffened. She quickly propped herself up and looked towards the direction where she was called. What she saw was the man's imposing figure standing in the air. The man's purple robe danced wildly in the strong wind. His sleeves fluttered like rolling purple clouds, surging with hidden storms. The sky was filled with dark radiance and flowing lights. It made the man look like a deity. His peerless face was filled with worry. His almond-shaped eyes stared at her without blinking. His brows were filled with worry and anxiety. Yi Qingluo's pupils contracted. Xian. Why did she see Xian? Didn't Xian go to the space of consciousness to fight with that person called Yuzun? Wait a minute. Space of consciousness? Yi Qingluo's slender fingers trembled slightly. Suddenly, she stood up abruptly and took 2 steps back. She staggered a little. Where she was now, it was a place like the vast starry sky of the universe. There was nothing else in all directions. His dark force swept around him. Yi Qingluo understood. She is now. It was sucked into the space of Xian's consciousness. It was no wonder that the earth-shattering power had disappeared the moment it hit the ground. Because this was the space of consciousness. Why was she sucked into Xian's space of consciousness? When could it be? A thought flashed past Yi Qingluo's mind. Chapter 37-74. Lil Luo. Xian's anxious growl was heard beside her ear. Yi Qingluo saw Xian's purple figure from the corner of her eye, closing in on her speedily. She realized something. but with her own speed, she had no way to react. Immediately following that, a gust of sinister wind closed in from behind. A hand clasped onto her shoulder. The violent and terrifying pressure made her chest feel stuffy as a mouthful of blood spilled out from the corner of her lips. A thick blood stench filled Yiqing Luo's nose. She couldn't tell if it was the blood stench on her, or was it from the person behind her who was holding her neck tightly, emitting a bloody stench. It was so thick as though someone had poured a large bowl of thick blood into her throat. Lil Luo. Dmo Xian's pupils constricted as he roared. Violent profound energy shot out, turning into thousands of layers of huge waves, attacking Yiqing Luo's back. Overlord. Above her head, a slightly anxious and gloomy voice was heard. Following that, Yiqing Luo felt the force on her neck increasing. A tyrannical and terrifying aura pervaded her surroundings, as though hell was beckoning to her. If you dare to move, I'll bring her along to hell. The gloomy voice was filled with a probing threat. Yiqing Luo's neck was forced to tilt backwards. She gave a dull moan as her slender brows creased into a bundle. From this angle, she was coincidentally able to see that person's face behind her clearly. It was Yuzun. Only the current Yuzun was totally not as energetic as before when he appeared at the auction. The brocade robe on him had several holes in it. His hair, which was originally neat and tidy, also fell down, baring his teeth and brandishing his claws. His face was pale, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked extremely disheveled. Apparently, it was a battle with Dmo Xian in this consciousness space. Dmo Xian had the upper hand. Oh! Her neck suddenly tightened. The icy cold prickling pain made her moan in pain. At the same time, the violent profound energy which surged over instantly stopped. The man's furious growl was heard. Yuzun. Ah! Yuzun held on to Yiqing Luo as he laughed. Have you ever thought that you would have such a day? Ah! The probing had gotten the result. Holding on to Yiqing Luo as a bargaining chip, Yuzun was completely fearless. Not long ago, a dignified venerable emperor actually had a weakness. Ha! Let her go. Dmo Xian stared intently at Yiqing Luo. The worry in his eyes was not concealed at all. Looking at Yiqing Luo's pale face and her entire body covered in blood, his heart felt like it was being pricked by a needle. There seemed to be something in his body that was slowly eroding away at him. Even breathing had become extremely difficult. Yiqing Luo was suffering. He felt even more pain. Tske. Dizun, with your intelligence, shouldn't you pretend that you don't care about this woman and take the opportunity to save her? After revered Lord had his trump card, the humiliation he had suffered in Dmo Xian's hands earlier seemed as though he could get it back. He clasped Yiqing Luo's neck tightly as he laughed wildly. Exposing your weakness to the enemy is a huge taboo. Yiqing Luo forced herself not to reveal a painful expression to make Dmo Xian worried. She knew that it was impossible for Dmo Xian to do what revered Lord said. Because Dmo Xian was unable to gamble with her safety, he would rather let others know about her weakness, to use it to threaten him. He couldn't bear to let her suffer any harm. Only by letting revered Lord know that she was a threat to him. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.